Go Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know, I'm your humble host, the Yameen of Revolution, and what's going on with this massive port strike that's hitting all across America. Your pockets could be hurting. What type of tactic is being used? Let's get right into this. I got time this morning to get into exactly what's happening. This absolutely will affect you.
This is Dabu 7, and this massive port strike begins all down the east coast of America into the Gulf. Some 45,000 members of this ILA on strike for the first time since 1977. This can cost America up to $5 billion a day, every day that the ports are shut down. And this is going to snarl everything. This is going to cause backups in all kinds of logistics, all kinds of products. People were worried about items for Christmas and things like that. Well, you better be thinking about food and things like that for survival, because this is going into effect and these people don't seem to be backing down whatsoever. They want fair pay, a fair contract, of course, out there. But all these big strikes have been organized. They've been back to back to back, leading up to this one being the biggest out of any out there, because this stops any goods from coming into the United States via the East Coast and the Gulf. This is massive. This can cause pure chaos if not fixed or resolved this week. If it flows over to a week or two, things could get really bad, and it could affect what you receive, what you're getting in your orders from other countries and across seas for months to come, all the way in to 2025, deep into 2025, they're saying. So you add this to everything else going on out there, and, well, 'tis the season for chaos, it seems. Hopefully they can work this out, but this isn't good. I want to warn people again. If there's things that you're looking at getting or wanting to buy, I would get them ASAP, because when these completely dry up, all these ports, you're not going to get anything until they fix this contract or get a deal in motion here. This is big time. This is big time. And most of the Americans out there just moving along, not paying attention to this. They're going to get blindsided by this when they can't get the stuff that they normally get. Anyhow, this is the latest. This is big, absolutely huge, and it can spiral out of control as the days and weeks go on. Hopefully they get this resolved. I'm going to touch on this and update on the live stream. Join me Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Thousand Union longshoremen are now on strike. The East Coast and the Gulf ports are completely shut down after the union was unable to agree on a contract with the management last night. Their dispute is not only over wages, but over the rise of automation that may cost them their job. The ramification of this strike is gigantic. Not only would it cost the United States over $3.7 billion in the first week, it will shut down supply chains. This strike being so close to the election and right after the devastating effects of Hurricane Helene, the workers have all the leverage right now. Here is the union boss who authorized the strike, explaining how much power the workers have in this situation.
When my men hit the streets, from Maine to Texas, every single port will lock down. You know what's going to happen? First week, be all over the news every night, boom, boom. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. Third week, malls start closing down. They can't get the goods from China. They can't sell clothes. They can't do this. Everything in the United States comes on a ship. They go out of business.
Man, they're going to shut it down,
Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel's not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job. Everybody's hating the longshoremen now because now they realize how important our jobs are. Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back for 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the companies money to pay their salaries. Well, they went from 30 moves an hour maybe to 8. They're going to be like this. Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world. And in today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you, and you have no idea what that means. Nobody does.
Considering the impacts of the strike, doesn't that highlight the labor value of the longshoremen that are going on strike? Simply pay the port workers their fair labor value before the strike destroys our economy, you absolute maniacs. They don't do that though, because that would set a dangerous precedent for the ruling class. Instead, the Chamber of Commerce is calling for genocide Joe Biden to break this strike the same way he broke the rail strike. Our government is completely tyrannical, and it's crazy how many Americans don't realize it yet.
See, they don't want to pay the workers. They want to make all the money, but they need to get their ass out there. Because the union boss, you heard the union boss, boy, it just sound like a mafioso, man. He gonna cripple them. He gonna hurt them. He gonna hit them where it hurt. You know, those big CEOs, their salaries done quadruple. And the little man ain't made nothing. Now that's over with.
Please support our work at democracynow.org/give. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, war, peace, and the
trying to bring all the
presidency.
migrants in, too. See, they want to flood the migrants in to get those jobs. Some people know what's going on, man. They plan on taking all these jobs from these people for lesser pay.
I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. In the first strike, all East Coast and Gulf Coast ports in almost 50 years, dock workers from Maine to Texas walked out on strike at midnight this morning. The International Longshoremen's Association represents some 40,000 dock workers at 36 ports who are demanding higher wages and guarantees that jobs won't be automated. This is Daniel Amali, a worker who joined picket lines this morning at Port Elizabeth outside New York City after the ILA's contract with shipping companies expired.
The ILA is fighting for respect, appreciation, and fairness in a world in which corporations are dead set on replacing hardworking people with automation. Employers push automation under the guise of safety, but it is really about cutting labor costs to increase their already exceptionally high profits.
On Sunday, President Biden said he would not intervene to stop the strike, which will disrupt trade and potentially lead to high prices just weeks before the presidential election.
Mr. President, would you intervene in the dock workers' strike if they go on strike on Tuesday?
No.
Why not?
Because it's collective bargaining. I don't believe in Taft-Hartley.
For more, we're joined by Peter Goodman, no relation, New York Times global economics correspondent. His recent piece is headlined, "Beneath the Potential Strike at U.S. Ports, Tensions Over Innovation." His new book is titled, "How the World Ran Out of Everything Inside the Global Supply Chain." Peter, welcome to Democracy Now! It's great to have you with us. Explain what just took place at midnight. We're talking about Maine to Texas.
Right.
The ports are shut down.
Yeah, we're talking about 36 shipping terminals at 14 different port authorities. We're talking about ports that are the gateway for roughly half of all the imported goods reaching the United States. Contract ended at midnight, and the dock workers walked off their jobs. They're seeking higher wages and guarantees that they will not be replaced through automation.
And Peter, in terms of the workers have been talking about the huge profits that the shipping companies have been making. Could you talk about that in context of their wage demands?
Yeah, so for a good period after the pandemic, where we had these massive disruptions that were enormous profit opportunities for the shipping companies. You know, we read a lot of headlines that it's chaos when we have these giant queues off of the twin ports of LA and Long Beach, the West Coast ports that are the gateway for about 40% of all imported goods reaching the country by container ship. And there's this implication that this is somehow bad for the ocean carriers. But the unfunny punchline of every one of these episodes, whether it's floating traffic jams or more recently restrictions on traffic moving through the Panama Canal because of drought, or ships that can't go through the Suez Canal because of strikes by Houthi rebels who are acting in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. Every single time there's disruption.
Now imagine if Iran shut the Strait of Hormuz right now. Any attack on Iran shut that strait. I've been telling y'all won't be driving to work. you gonna get a bicycle. It's gonna cost too much.
Prices go up and profits go to record levels for the ocean carriers. At the same time, the dock workers, who have very dangerous jobs, they're very physically rigorous jobs, they are highly paid, but their position is we're entitled to that as compensation. Their wages have actually flatlined. They've stagnated compared to inflation. And so they're seeking what looks like a very substantial headline increase, 70+%. It's been reported, though there's not a lot of open discussion of these terms over the next several years. And overnight, it seems like the port operators tried to bridge the distance with a package that they say would be about a 50% raise. The dock workers say that's not enough. And one of the things they're very concerned about is the push. This is a historic push. It goes back to the beginning of container shipping in the 1950s to replace them with robots, other forms of automation. Robots don't go on strike. They don't have sick kids to take care of at home. They don't need time off with their families. This really goes back to the beginning of the container industry, where time and again employers have sought to use various forms of technology to limit their vulnerability to exactly what we've got now, a work stoppage, as dock workers seek a greater piece of the action.
And could you talk about how the emphasis for the several decades now of worldwide capital of having just-in-time production lines of products coming in to be sold immediately, how well the American industry can withstand a long strike?
Well, a long strike is going to be tough because we've already seen a lot of diversion of cargo from East Coast ports to West Coast ports. Congestion could quickly build up if that continues. We've seen a little bit of diversion to places like Mexican ports, where we've got road and rail connections into the U.S. And eventually on to Canada. But those ports are much smaller. They're less efficient. The rail system, by the way, has really been depleted by a version of just-in-time known as precision scheduled railroading, which is essentially a fancy way of saying, let's fire lots of workers. Let's stick the remaining workers with extra jobs. They've diminished service. They've made trains longer than ever. So accidents tend to be much more dangerous. And it's really about boosting returns for shareholders at the expense of the operational capacity of the rail system. So the idea that rail will pick up the burden is really dubious. If this thing goes on, we're likely to see serious congestion off the West Coast ports, similar to what we saw during the pandemic. Container ships turned into floating warehouses, and we are likely to see product shortages and potentially inflation if this goes on for a few weeks.
The president of the International Longshoremen's Association, Harold Daggett, endorsed Biden in the 2020 election, but more recently accused Biden of, quote, not fighting for us. Last November, Daggett said he had a productive meeting with former President Trump at Mar-a-Lago. He spoke in a video released by the union last month.
We went on strike in 1977 for 3 months for 80 cents. Fast forward. Back then, the companies were lucky they made millions of dollars, to 10 million, 5 million. Today, they make billions and billions of dollars. MSC is the richest shipping company in the world, made 3 times the money than Amazon. A lot of money, right? Billions. Well, one of the companies, and I won't mention his name, he took himself the Christmas bonus, $4 billion. He took it out for him and his family, $4 billion. A French company, I won't mention their name, They gave all their employees 50 months salary as a Christmas gift. Now, look at that money. They have so much money, they don't even know what to do with it.
A $4 billion bonus for the boss. That's president of the International Longshoremen's Association, Harold Daggett. Peter Goodman, can you talk about what he said and also the significance of U.S. business groups wanting Biden to invoke the Taft-Hartley Act and Biden saying he's not going to, and what that means?
Sure. It's a very strange dynamic because, of course, traditionally, labor, key Democratic constituency. Biden is very reluctant to wade in and end this strike because he faced a backlash when he used a different law to shut down the railroad strike 2 years ago without getting paid sick leave for traveling maintenance crews and other rail workers. So he's very reluctant to be the guy who steps in, takes away the leverage for the union. I mean, this is a time of labor mobilization in this country. And of course, we saw that the UAW did very well with a militant strike. The ILA is doing likewise. Here's the irony, though. So you've got all these business groups that are lobbying the Biden administration to act because, of course, the economy writ large is going to get hit by a long strike. Factories that are dependent upon imported components and parts are going to get hit. Retailers waiting for products to come in, often from Asia, will get hit. Consumers could face shortages, inflation. Here's the one group that probably won't get hit: the shipping carriers. I mean, I spoke last night to the chair of the Federal Maritime Commission, who said that this is the classic playbook that goes back to the pandemic, where the shipping carriers cut capacity, and what happens? Prices go up. We're talking about a cartel. This is an international cartel that's made up of 3 alliances. Think like airline alliances, like your Star Alliance, your One World. They've got 85 to 90% of the traffic on the key routes from Asia to Europe and from Asia to the West and East Coast of the United States. So the longer this goes on, the higher the prices go, potentially the higher the profits for the shipping carriers. So the one move for the union is, well, we're going to monkey wrench the economy as a way to generate pressure for a settlement. But that could actually be good for the people they're trying to get greater leverage for. That could increase the pressure on the Biden administration, really reluctant, again, to intervene in a labor dispute to put an end to this thing because it will hit the real economy. And I don't have to tell you that we're only weeks away from a presidential election that could very well hinge on economic sentiments and unhappiness over inflation.
I do want to get really quickly to the port strike.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because, speaking of what's going on domestically and shipping, you gave us a good segue there. And I do want to, spend some time previewing the debate before the debate actually starts. But you've got 45,000 port workers now on strike, stretching from Maine all the way to Texas. And the president of that union being quite fiery in his rhetoric about what this means. Obviously, if the longshoremen are not working, goods are not moving in those ports. Now, what the economists and what the politicians are saying is, okay, well, for a few days, businesses were kind of prepared for this and they rerouted goods to the West Coast, et cetera, et cetera. If it drags on, though, there will be significant impact. Let's take a listen to a little bit of what the president of the International Longshoremen's Union had to say.
These people today don't know what a strike is.
Right.
When my men hit the streets from Maine to Texas, every single port will lock down. You know what's going to happen? I'll tell you. First week, be all over the news every night, boom, boom. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. They get laid off. Third week, malls start closing down. They can't get the goods from China. They can't sell clothes. They can't do this. Everything in the United States comes on a ship. They go out of business. Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel's not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job. Everybody's hating the longshoremen now because now they realize how important our jobs are. Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back for 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the companies money to pay their salaries. Well, they went from 30 moves an hour maybe to 8. They're going to be like this. Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world. In today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you, and you have no idea what that means. Nobody does.
So he clearly, Ryan, understands the power
it would have been better
if
it would have been better if it was a TikTok and he was in a passenger seat, talking into it.
Oh yeah, that would be the vibe. Give us you really flagged this and have been on top of this more than maybe anyone. So give us a sense of the history here, what they're asking for, et cetera.
I mean, they know that they have the choke points of the economy.
And the choke points of this election coming up too.
And with the election coming up, yes, but at the same time, they know there's going to be, like he said, he's going to have the president yelling at him. He's going to have Mayor Pete, no doubt, yelling at him. Mayor Pete's been in the middle of this trying to get it to a deal. They're asking for $5 an hour extra every year for their 6-year contract, and they're fighting against automation.
Yeah,
those are the two big things.
Yeah. The automation piece seems to be a really significant part of it as well, which is something we've tracked with other strikes, in particular some of the Hollywood strikes previously, where the writers were really concerned and the actors were very concerned about the use of their likenesses.
Let's put the next one up on the screen, please. Can we put, is it C2? Because that actually has a map. This is kind of useful. So what you see are all of the ports there along the East Coast that are currently shut down. The Port of New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore are so significant in terms of the amount of trade. This also comes before retail is about to have its biggest quarter. Q4, always the biggest one for retail. December, Thanksgiving, all of those sales. So, I mean, it's very smartly timed on their part. It would, I mean, in terms of the specifics of the contract, like Ryan was saying, they're asking for that raise that would happen. What was it? The ILA wants the base hourly rate for it to change to $69 from a $39 per hour, a 77% pay increase that would phase in over 6 years as a condition to sit down to talks with maritime employers. The kind of issue right now is that they rejected the previous one, the ILA, but it wasn't just over wage issues. It was specifically also about automation. Their, response to everyone who was like, "Oh, that's ridiculous." We're like, well, first of all, it's over, 6 years. But their real beef with them is about the amount of profit that ocean carriers had during COVID. So everyone will remember all of that.
Have been really
cleaned up. Yeah,
and they raised prices.
All those shipping,
some of the worst abusers in terms of corporate.
They're worse than the
greedflation.
Who was it? They're worse than the trains. Like, remember we covered the railway strikes. These people are filthy rich. So that's really where the actual sticking point is. I think the real question will actually be about media coverage, because kind of like last time, the railway workers weren't able to get their message across really at all. Biden crushed them effectively and forced through that deal. So this time, kind of like he's saying, he's like, well, the media is going to blame us. But, if you actually explain the situation, look, without taking a side or whatever, if you explain the situation, it's reasonable in terms of the way the contract works and all of that. Politically, I have seen criticism of them of like, hey, you guys are screwing over Biden and the Democrats, like when they need you once. But if the contract comes up over every 6 years, what are you supposed to do? Just wait another, it's like, we went 12 years without a pay increase.
It's total nonsense. Their contract was up. It's not like they timed it to coincide with the election. Now it happens to give them some little additional leverage. But wait, put C3 up on the screen. This will be interesting to see if there's a question tonight at the debate to JD Vance and Tim Walz about this strike. So Biden so far has been pretty much on the side of the workers. He said, he was asked, Mr. President, will you intervene in the dock workers strike if they go on strike on Tuesday? He said no. And they said, why not? Because there's collective bargaining, and I don't believe in Taft-Hartley. So without getting too much into the minutia here, and here you have Bernie Sanders saying President Biden is right. And Biden put out another statement that, echoed and elaborated on this basic instinct. The railway workers operate under a different set of specific laws that are specific to their industry, whereas the dock workers are just broadly under Taft-Hartley. So you have Republicans, a lot of Republicans now, who are like, use Taft-Hartley to stop this strike. This is going to be devastating to the economy, et cetera, et cetera. And you've had Biden so far on the other side of that, saying, no, there's a collective bargaining, collective bargaining is occurring. The companies need to do right by the workers, et cetera, et cetera. So given J.D. Vance's positioning in particular is trying to be more pro-labor, trying to signal, more friendliness towards unions, I'm curious how he would handle a question on this issue, because most Republicans have been on the side of just like crush the workers and get them back to work. And
what are the chances they'll ask?
You have Trump out there.
I don't think it's high.
Unlike, you never know. I mean,
and
if they're smart,
it's a significant economic issue right now.
It is,
right?
but did they catch on that it's happening? Yeah, I don't know.
Do they watch Counterpoints?
It'll be interesting to see. They should. It's happening now, and a week from now, if it's still happening, it's all that anybody's going to be talking about.
Right. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. And it would be. I'm curious too what Trump would say about it, because he.
Well, this guy is friends with Trump. Apparently, there's photos of the two of them.
Surprising news.
Yeah, but more in terms of the like.
I think the union did endorse Kamala though.
Yes.
So that's not unusual or uncommon in the labor world, but the union is officially behind Kamala Harris. But, Trump, he'll do these sort of like virtue signals towards labor. But then when push comes to shove, he's there bragging with Elon about how cool it was that Elon was firing striking workers and complaining about how he never liked to pay overtime and would do whatever he could to get out of it. So, when it comes down to the specifics, it's not always there.
Well, and let's put this next element up on the screen, because Ryan, I want to see if you agree with your former colleague, Sam Stein, who says this latest Biden statement on the potential strike leans heavily in favor of the longshoremen demands. So Biden says collective bargaining is the best way for workers to get the pay and benefits they deserve. I have urged USMX, which represents a group of foreign-owned carriers, to come to the table and present a fair offer to the workers of the International Longshoremen's Association that ensures they are paid appropriately in line with their invaluable contributions. So we were just talking, Ryan, about the sort of the known unknown of Biden in foreign policy right now. Like, we know that he's the president. We don't know what that means at any given moment. How could that translate to potential negotiations here? What are the tea leaves that you read from that?
Well, when he was, did you see the clip where he was getting off Air Force One or getting out of the motorcade, and somebody said, what do you think of the port strike? And they were talking about Israel striking the port in Yemen.
Yeah,
and
right.
He said, I've been on the phone with them. We're going to get a deal.
Right.
And everybody lost their minds. They had no idea that there was a port strike coming. The only port strike they knew of was the one that Israel had launched on Hodeidah. So he has been involved in this, and he's facilitating the launch of a regional war now in the Middle East. At the same time, no other president has crapped on Taft-Hartley like that before. No other president really put out a statement.
So that like part was like, maybe we shouldn't have switched out Kamala.
I wish we had more time so we could actually get into Taft-Hartley, because the politics on it are fascinating. There was a time in this country where every single person knew the name Taft-Hartley. But it's probably been like
when half the country were in unions,
60, 70 years.
Yeah, that's
since
right.
Something like that.
60% of the country was in a union.
Yeah.
So
actually, if people like it, LBJ literally ran on the whole Taft-Hartley thing back in 1948. But anyway, we don't have to keep.
Country when everybody knew the name.
We don't have to keep down that road.
Thousand dock workers for a link for tickets. Corporate greed versus workers' rights. East Coast dock workers go on strike. We're prepared to fight as long as necessary to stay out on strike for whatever period of time it takes to get the wages and protections against automation our ILA members deserve. So dock workers at East and Gulf Coast ports went on strike Tuesday morning, forming picket lines from Massachusetts to Texas. The International Longshoremen's Association, the ILA, the union that represents 45,000 dock workers, didn't accept terms offered by the United States Maritime Alliance, the port operators group, and initiated a walkout. It's the first strike at the 36 East and Gulf Coast ports since 1977, when dock workers won major concessions. The labor dispute centers on the level of pay increase and the degree of automation allowed at the ports. We are prepared to fight. Okay. So here is the head of the union. You want to hear what he says?
But today's world
It's changing into the future. They're not making millions no more. They're making billions, and they're spending it fast as they make it.
So he's saying that the companies that the workers work for aren't making millions anymore. They're making billions.
Salute.
Okay. And the workers want their part.
I want a piece of that for my men. Because when they made their most money was during COVID. When my men had to go to work on those piers every single day, when everybody stayed home and went to work. Not my men. They died out there with the virus. We all got sick with the virus. We kept them going. From Canada to Maine to Texas, Great Lakes, Puerto Rico, now the Bahamas, everybody went to work during COVID. Nobody stayed home. Well, I want to be compensated for that. I'm not asking for the world. They know what I want. They know what I want. And if they don't, well, then I have to go into the street and we have to fight for what we rightfully deserve. These people today don't know what a strike is.
That's right.
When my men hit the streets, from Maine to Texas, every single port will lock down. You know what's going to happen? I'll tell you. First week, be all over the news every night, boom, boom. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. They get laid off. Third week, malls start closing down. They can't get the goods from China. They can't sell clothes. They can't do this. Everything in the United States comes on a ship. They go out of business. Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel is not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job. Everybody's hating the longshoremen now because now they realize how important our jobs are. Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back for 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the company's money to pay their salaries. Well, they went from 30 moves an hour maybe to 8. They're going to be like this. Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world. And in today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you. And you have no idea what that means. Nobody does.
I hope he's right.
There's a lot of
they get broken.
So there's a lot of people that are saying, oh, the union has too much power. You think workers have too much power in today's economy? The richest country in the world, 80% of workers live paycheck to paycheck. Half the country can't afford a fucking house right now. Half the country can't afford a $400 emergency. You think workers have too much power? What this will do is set a template. So we've had the largest upward transfer of wealth in human history during COVID. Right now, we have an income disparity that you had to go back to the times of the pharaohs to find it. I used to say you go back to the Gilded Age. It's worse than that. You got to go back to the time of the pharaohs. So this would be great for not just those workers, for all workers. Everybody should be cheering this on because this is how you build a middle class. This is how you make the working class stronger. This is how you do it. And all they're asking for is negotiate. Let's negotiate. They don't want to put anybody out of business. They want their fair share of the profits. And here's a Fox News tool trying to corner him, and watch how he responds.
You are going to grind the economy to a halt here on the East Coast.
But what about what about the company? What about why is it them and not the other company doesn't want to negotiate? It's the workers. It's never the greedy billionaire owners. Here we go.
Who owns it?
You are going to grind the economy to a halt here on the East Coast and the Gulf Coast.
No, not us. They are. Don't spin it now because you're Fox News. They're going to drive it.
But are you worried? Are you worried that this strike?
They have the capital to settle this thing.
Are you worried that this strike is going to hurt the everyday American, the farmers that need to reach the export market? They're telling me that they're going to hurt.
Now you start to realize who the longshoremen are, right?
Nobody cares.
People never gave a about us until now, when they finally realized that the chain is being broke now. Cars won't come in. Food won't come in. Clothing won't come in. You know how many people depend on our jobs? Half the world. And it's time for them and time for Washington to put so much pressure on them to take care of us. We took care of them, and we're here 135 years and brought them where they are today, and they don't want to share.
I mean, I hope that guy is what he sounds like he is. I hope so. I'm so used to seeing these people talk a good game and then it's like broken or whatever.
Like Sinn Féin.
Yeah, like Sinn Féin. Remember Sinn?
Yeah. Hey, regardless of the outcome of this strike, I think HBO has a new gritty drama series on their hands. So
who was that reporter? That scumbag from Fox.
Okay. Well, aren't you worried about how you're going to hurt everyday people? Why don't you ask that to the company?
I'm glad
You're
she
a
asked that
reporter saying
question.
that?
Actually, I'm glad she asked that question because he was able to give that strong
That's right.
response to let the world know that we are dependent on the longshoremen.
The port strike has begun here in Boston. Members of the International Longshoremen's Association are marching to the Conley Terminal to hit the picket line after failed contract negotiations with the U.S. Maritime Alliance. This will impact ports from Maine to Texas. Here they are.
Talk to the people.
Daggett spoke to picketers at a terminal in Elizabeth, New Jersey, saying the strike would go down in history and referenced his participation in the 1977 strike. He pointed the finger at USMX's global shipping companies, some of which are based in Europe, saying that they price gouge their customers, echoing an argument the ILA had made in the statement on Monday, and they shortchanged their stock workers. Who's the greedy one here? Asked Daggett. These companies over in Europe, they don't give an F about us. We're going to show them they're going to have to give an F about us because there's nothing going to move without us.
I know all about
Wouldn't it be great if we could shut down the arms trade like this?
Picketing that's standing on
Just
the
a bunch
line.
of dock workers go, hey, we're not shipping any more arms to Israel. In Philadelphia, workers walked in circular picket line at a rail crossing outside the port just after midnight and chanted no work without fair contract. The Associated Press reported. The local ILA president, Boise Butler, made remarks on wages and automation. Like Daggett, he mentioned the billions that shipping companies made during the pandemic. They made billions in profit. Not just billions.
Oh, they don't have enough money to
now
pay
we
them.
want them to pay us back. They're going to pay us back.
Problem. The corporations is greedy as fuck.
Most recently, some ILA dock workers have reportedly had a base salary of $81,000, and some have earned as much as $200,000.
Everybody see they want to automate everything and bring in illegals and then kill the Americans off. All Americans. Every color is happening to everybody. People see this. They want to automate everything, then bring in the illegals. They don't give a damn. And that's Republicans that run corporations, and that's rich Democrats. The rich is doing this motherfucking bullshit. The super rich, they're doing this. They don't give a shit about no America. They just scammers, you know.
With large amounts of overtime. They say their hours are extremely long and the conditions are harsh or even dangerous. Of course they are. The top hourly rate has been $39. And the hourly back pay can be as low as $20 for back-breaking, indispensable work, according to More Perfect Union, a progressive media outlet. The ILA reportedly demanded a $5 per year raise in hourly pay over the course of a 6-year contract. So that would top hourly rate in the final year at $69 an hour. I say good for them. West Coast dock workers reached a deal with operators that will have them earning just over $60 an hour. So the West Coast ports already have their contract, and they're going to be making $60 an hour by 2027. USMX offered only a $2.50 raise each year. The two sides exchanged counteroffers regarding wages on Monday, with each side moving from its initial position, according to USMX. So that was in 2023. The West Coast reached their deal. The West Coast port workers. President Joe Biden, a Democrat, has the authority under the 1947 Taft-Hartley Act to break the strike and institute an 80-day cooling off period, a power that Republican presidents have used. Biden said Sunday that he doesn't plan to do so.
Oh, boy.
Oh, really?
How's this going to go for Kamala?
I think he said that because he didn't understand the question.
Yeah, I don't believe Biden is doing things. I don't believe.
No, I agreed.
He thought they were asking if he had any plans to have a taffy party, and he believes his teeth couldn't handle it.
Just ice cream for me. I'm old.
The New York Times reported Tuesday that Biden faced a quandary 5 weeks before the election, not wanting to anger union allies and working class advocates by intervening, but also not wanting the strike to weigh on the economy. Biden did, however, say he was taking swift action to double and even triple flights of migrants from the border in key ports along the East Coast. That's a joke part. More than half of the country's container shipments go through 36 affected ports, and a prolonged strike would cause major economic disruptions. More Perfect Union wrote that a port owner's refusal to meet union demands could cost the U.S. economy billions of dollars a week. Just in, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has urged President Biden to block the East Coast port strike, saying it would be unconscionable to allow work stoppage that will shock the U.S. That's why they have power. That's why you strike, because it will cause economic pain. That's the only power workers have. That's the only power you have.
This is like the same as people not understanding, that it's not I'm with her. Hillary's supposed to be with you, Like you're supposed to hold the government hostage until they do what you want. They're not supposed to hold you hostage.
Right.
People completely have it backwards now.
Well, what I said is the workers have power, and that cannot stand. The whole point of a strike is to inflict economic pain. So they're going to get the guy who broke the last railroad strike to break the longshoreman strike. Just like Clinton passing NAFTA that decimated labor, Biden is crushing labor in his own way. And here, look who this is. This is the Biden's Secretary of Commerce. Her name is Gina Raimondo. Listen, they ask her about this, and listen to what she says.
Where have you been kind of focused and hearing on what would happen if the strike goes, let's say, longer than a week?
Again, I have not been very focused on that.
She's not very focused on it.
Oopsie.
The Secretary of Commerce, not really focused on the commerce thing.
Why is everybody in charge of all the things not know about their thing? Have you noticed that? The guy from the Fed didn't know why we have to borrow money we print. Every time they go to a person and ask them, they don't know anything about the job they have. Why is that?
I'm going to guess it's because, Kurt, she's spending most of her time on private docks with wealthy people who own boats the size of your neighborhood. Maybe that's why.
She's busy trying to buy her tape back from the Diddy parties.
Yeah. She doesn't have time to focus on all those big, dirty boats from other places.
Yeah.
I said, I'm guessing if the strike starts to inflict real hurt on the capitalists who run the government, then they'll get the government to squash the strike, just like they did to the railroad workers. Your country is being run by clowns, dupes, and puppets and propped up by the corporate media. Here's one more shocking poll. 57% of Americans want Biden to shut down the port strike.
What? Who did they ask? I don't believe... Who are they talking to?
Americans are spineless scabs. This is why the working class is so exploited in this country.
I bet they didn't ask Americans that work at the docks or
right. I know. Who did they ask?
I bet they asked this chick, the commerce secretary and her friend. I don't believe any of these polls that they do. I don't believe
Agreed.
them.
So he says, I think this poll was definitely manipulated, but it is true that Americans are scabs who usually blame striking workers instead of management when times get tough. Counter-revolutionary behavior is in the DNA of so many Americans. Just wait until the effects of this strike are felt and watch how fast Americans turn on the port workers following the direction of the media. It never fails.
Well, it's because it's, like I said, mind control is real and everybody has been under it for quite some time. And I watch people as an instinct. Oh, yeah, unions are bad. I don't need a union to protect me from the... Although I will say, a lot of Americans, the union they're in, they care about, but everybody else's, they're like, no, they're bad. Just mine.
It's funny how all the actors and writers, they know they need a union. Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny that airline pilots need? Isn't it funny that LeBron James is in a goddamn union? Yeah. Isn't it funny that all your favorite football players and baseball players, the millionaires, they know they need a union because without a union, they're screwed.
Yeah, they wouldn't even be millionaires.
That's right.
There's no way they would make the salaries that they make.
That's
which
right.
Is probably a fraction of what the owners make. Still.
That's right.
But it had to be fought.
So you're telling me that the NBA, LeBron James needs a union, Michael Jordan needed a union. But the dock workers don't need a union?
The most important business in all of America, the supply chain.
Railroad workers and port workers.
Jimmy, I just want to share, Anti-War Doc also shared something with me, said, while the International Longshoremen's Association has been compelled by rank and file anger to promise to strike if a deal is not placed by the end of Monday, ILA President Harold Daggett has also pledged to keep ILA workers handling military cargo during the strike,
That's horrible.
including shipments bound for Israel and Ukraine, where U.S.-backed wars are
That's
on the
horrible.
brink of major escalations. Incredibly, Daggett favorably cited the bureaucrats' role in blocking strikes during the two world wars of the 20th century, declaring dating back to the World War I, the ILA was always proud to note that the ILA always
this
means
isn't
love
World War
America
II.
when it came
That's
to
not-
no strike
the
pledge.
Ukraine war and Israel war, it has nothing to do with America. That's you being tools of evil. And
he doesn't
and-
want to die. He probably
Yeah.
doesn't want to be killed.
Yeah,
I
that's
would
you're
expect that's
probably
what it
right.
is. You think you're going to get in the way of that and you're going to live? I don't.
So you want to see how a strike happens? This is these are not dock workers. These are Teamsters who work for Smart and Final. And what's happening is Smart and Final is shutting down their places of employment and their warehouses. And then when they open them back up, they make the workers come back for less money. That's
Well, we
what's
got all
happening.
these migrants that they get bonuses from the government to get rid of the workers that live there and bring in the migrants for much less money. It's been all over the
So
place.
what?
We have programs to
So this
encourage
is what they're doing, and here's the Teamsters who are going on. This is how they go on strike.
If you are a Teamster, punch out, grab your stuff, go home. Let's get out of here. We are officially on strike. Punch out, let's go. We are officially on strike.
What about their feelings?
Who are we? Who are we? Who are we? Who are we? No contract. No contract. No contract. No contract. No contract. No contract. No contract.
Gotta pay the people. Gotta stop being greedy.
Well, now we know what the illegals are for. I know what the mass illegal migration is for. Because as the automation stuff comes in and people get mad and the unions leave, they want to have another workforce who's just grateful to be here.
That's right.
Ready to go.
Come on, man. They not slick. They want automation, and they want the illegals to take everybody's job for lower pay. These people, the big business, these people is corrupt.
That's what they're doing.
And that's
none
what
of my rich friends care about that at all.
And that's what sanctions are for on places like Venezuela, to create people desperate enough to come here and work for substandard like wages and undermine the worker. That's exactly what that is.
I've never seen a line this long at Costco. It's freaking massive. Something's going on. I mean, look at that. And even snakes all the way from over there, back there, around here. I mean, it's going to take me literally more than a minute to walk all the way down here. See if there's any good samples. That's nuts. Insane.
And
Hey, Steph and I went to rescue the Republic event in D.C. this past weekend, and even though we stayed at a nice hotel, we really
Today in this video, I bring you one of the most significant events in recent history. America is reeling from a shocking development, and this situation is only escalating it. Approximately 45,000 International Longshoremen's Association dock workers went on strike today. According to reports, the ILA is demanding a substantial wage increase, which is reported to be about 77% over 6 years, and stricter controls or bans on automation in port operations. This automation, which includes cranes and containers moving technologies, is at the heart of the dispute, with workers fearing job losses. In other words, they are afraid that they may lose their jobs to AI and want to prevent this from happening by striking in hopes of receiving better pay and guaranteeing it. As AI robots continue to replace human jobs, the ILA's decision to strike against this trend is a bold move. However, the ripple effects of today's post-strike will be felt across the East and Gulf Coast, disrupting the flow of goods into the country and affecting all Americans.
These people today don't know what a strike is.
Right.
When my men hit the streets from Maine to Texas, every single port will lock down. You know what's going to happen? I'll tell you. First week, be all over the news every night, boom, boom. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. They get laid off. Third week, malls start closing down. They can't get the goods from China. They can't sell clothes. They can't do this. Everything in the United States comes on a ship. They go out of business. Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel's not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job. Everybody's hating the longshoremen now because now they realize how important our jobs are. Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back for 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the company's money to pay their salaries. Well, they went from 30 moves an hour maybe to 8. They're going to be like this. Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world. And in today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you. And you have no idea what that means. Nobody does.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a modern day labor dispute. If you have been watching my previous videos, I covered how and why the Civil War started in America. They lied to you and said it was over the abolishment of slavery, when it was merely over a labor dispute, similar to today's event, in which people have no idea when this strike or dispute will be settled. Let's hope this part of history does not repeat itself, because most Americans are not ready to face the consequences of a corrupt government's actions. This means that more than furniture will need to be moved around to redecorate the place for greater amusement.
Produced by Dane Calloway and Tanisha Calloway. Watch this brand new documentary, Mother Rosa, right now at DaneMakeYouThink.com.
This strike could lead to significant disruptions in the supply chain, potentially causing delays and price increases for a wide range of goods, from automobiles, automotive parts, clothing, and electronics, to food items like coffee, fruits, and even holiday goods, because that's coming up. In my opinion, I understand and agree that they should strike. I just believe that this was not a good time to strike when we have millions of innocent Americans in need of assistance. Many people in the South are not worried about holiday goods, but they definitely need assistance recovering from the hurricane. With the uncertainty of how long this strike could last, it could significantly impact Southerners' ability to receive the help they need. Keep in mind, the majority of the goods are coming off of the ships and going to the trucks. If the trucks have nothing to load, the truckers don't get paid.
Jeff Flock outside the port of Newark, New Jersey. How's this affecting the truckers? How's it affecting them?
It is crazy for the truckers right now, Stuart. I can step off here. Maybe you see this is a line of trucks. And I don't know if Scott's able to spin around. This is into the port of Newark, and there are multiple ports in there, backed up, trying to get in. This one truck there has got obviously trying to get a load. They're trying to get everything out of the ports as quickly as they can. And a lot of these truckers, I'll tell you, if this strike comes off, and it certainly looks like it will, they're not going to be working. If there's a Gene LaFortune has been driving at this port for 40 years?
Yes, sir.
40 years. If you don't work, if this shuts down tomorrow, what happens to you?
I don't get paid because I get paid daily. If it shut down, that means I got to wait whenever they settle. Then whenever they start moving, that's the time I'm...
Because you get paid only by the load, right?
Yeah, by the load, yes.
He drives for IMC Logistics, Stuart, one of the biggest intermodal freight companies in the country. And again, everybody's trying to get into the port and get stuff out as quickly as they can. We've got a picture from their terminal, IMC Logistics terminal, not far from here. That is littered with these, trailers. They've tried to get everything out of the port as quickly as they can so that nothing is trapped in there. Because if this strike goes on for weeks, basically anything that's still inside the port is not going anywhere until that strike is over. One piece of breaking news here, and this is unconfirmed, but we've been told by multiple sources now that one of the ports, and maybe Scott gives us a spin around one more time to look toward the port, one of the ports has already been shut down. That is because the workers have said, you know what, this strike is happening. We got to be back at midnight for the picket, and it's been shut down. So that's unconfirmed, but that's what we believe here. Multiple ports in the ports of New York and New Jersey. It's a mess out here, but you might have expected that. And the mess is maybe only more to come, depending on how this plays out.
Some reports claim that losses could reach up to $4.5 billion with a B daily if the strike continues. So prices of goods will increase again over time. It's already increased, but it will happen again. That is a problem, especially for the Southerners trying to be rescued and then recover from the hurricane that occurred over this past weekend. Also, this was not a blindsided port strike. So some businesses shifted their shipments to West Coast ports, or some just prepared for extended supply chain disruptions by ordering more than normal to be shipped throughout this past September.
Over the weekend, the past
Secretary of Labor Julie Sue has been terrific. She's knocking down doors. She's trying to stop this. She's trying to get us to a media where we can have a fair negotiations. It's the companies that don't want to. They don't want to sit here and be fair. So that's why we're out here fighting for our livelihood.
What more from the automation do you want? What more protections could there be?
What more?
Yeah, they have language in there now.
Not strong enough, because what happens is they come in with new technology. We just caught them in Mobile, Alabama, called Autogate. And that means the trucks are coming in and they're already checked in somewhere else and not using the checkers in the ILA. Circumventing the contract. They don't care. They don't care. It's not fair. And if we don't put our foot down now, they would like to run over us, and we're not going to allow that.
You are going to grind the economy to a halt here on the East Coast and the Gulf Coast.
No, not us. They are. Don't spin it now because you're Fox News. They're going to drive it.
But are you worried? Are you worried that this
They have the
strike?
capital to settle this thing.
Are you worried that this strike is going to hurt the everyday American, the farmers that need to reach the export market? They're telling me that they're going to hurt through
Now
all
you
of this.
start to realize who the longshoremen are, right?
Nobody cares.
People never gave a about us until now, when they finally realized that the chain is being broke now. Cars won't come in. Food won't come in. Clothing won't come in. You know how many people depend on our jobs? Half the world. And it's time for them and time for Washington to put so much pressure on them to take care of us, because we took care of them and we're here 135 years and brought them where they are today, and they don't want to share.
Fox Business' Lydia Hu joins us now from the port of Newark in New Jersey. And I've been following you. We have been, as you've done this story for us. And now the rubber has met the road. And he feels like he's dug in and feels like he's in a strong position. Is he in as strong a position as he thinks or appears to seem to be?
You know, he certainly feels like he's in a strong position, and he's probably looking around at other unions and the wage gains and the record contracts that they have notched in recent years. I mean, just last year, the West Coast port workers got a new contract with a 32% wage hike over 4 years. So now Mr. Daggett, the president, is looking at that and saying, we want that and better. Just yesterday, Dana, Mr. Daggett rejected port management's offer of a 50% wage hike over 8 years, just to give you an idea of where they stand right now.
Kamala Harris is the current vice president, and she's not doing anything about it. Joe Biden is the current president, and he does have the ability to use the Taft-Hartley Act, which orders workers to return to work by force. But he says that he would not intervene.
Mr. President, would you intervene in the dock workers' strike if they go on strike on Tuesday?
No.
Why not?
Because it's collective bargaining. I don't believe in Taft-Hartley.
Joining me now, American Trucking Association's president and CEO, Chris Spear. Chris, good morning to you. Give us your assessment of where we are right now. It seems that the negotiations are at a standstill.
They are, Cheryl. Thanks for having me on. Listen, we're less than 18 hours out, and this president's saying it's collective bargaining. Well, that's true if they've actually been to the table. They haven't met since June. I mean, where is the leadership here? We've got Southeast United States, half of North Carolina, parts of Georgia, Southern Virginia that are underwater or under mud digging out. These people need help. And now we're going to shut down 36 ports. All the commerce going in and out of this eastern half of the country, 46% of all agriculture is exported out of our East Coast ports. This is not the time for a strike. This administration needs to get these parties to the table and get a deal. They're derelict. They're not anywhere near this negotiation. So this needs to get called out.
Let's talk about your association. You're moving over 72% of the nation's freight by tonnage. You're saying 46% of containerized agricultural exports departs, again, you just mentioned that, from these East Coast ports. So let's talk about the kinds of foods that are in the products that are in those containers. You mentioned the number, but give me some specific examples, because as you're saying, these are crucial supplies that need to go to these eastern states.
Well, absolutely. Let's start with farmers. Let's start with agriculture. The things that are going to perish first are fruit, produce. You know, we've got meat, poultry. We've got everything from soybeans to cotton. All these things in the first week are going to be the products that are going to show up on the shelves first. As you go second week, third week, fourth week out, you're looking at things that are going to show up on the shelves at Christmas time. So this is not, you know, the sequence you want going into an election. You know, this is really a disaster in the making. And
you were talking about 45,000 workers, 3 dozen ports. You've got 85,000 union workers, right? This could cost, and this is, I'm sorry, JP Morgan analysis, not Moody's. This could cost $5 billion per day. We could be losing $4.5 to $7.5 billion in GDP per week. And then Chris mentioning, obviously, these states have now been hit by a natural disaster, and they're going to be cut off from these supplies.
Yeah, and Cheryl, you know, look, this is going to happen right as the holiday shopping season is going to be kicking into gear, which is totally frustrating. And what I've heard is that even a 2-week strike can actually disrupt supply chains into 2025 next year. So, look, I mean, I understand when people want more money. Everybody wants to make more money. Everybody wants to improve their standard of living. I don't know if 77% is reasonable, but the fact that they want to eliminate all automation, that's the thing that's really most disturbing to me from an economic standpoint, Cheryl, because, you know, we need, when you look at AI and automation, That's what's going to drive productivity. That's what's going to drive efficiency and economic growth into the future. We need to embrace automation, not shun it. Otherwise, our adversaries are going to pass us up economically.
And also, Liz Peek, Benchmark Capital's Bill Gurley telling Fox Business that basically the federal government has got to step in. And he says outlawing the effective use of technology will unquestionably doom our nation. We will become globally uncompetitive.
Yeah, this is a tremendous blow to the productivity of our entire infrastructure, Cheryl, if President Biden doesn't step in. And viewers should know that he has the right to do that. The Taft-Hartley law allows him to call for an 80-day cooling off period. And that is what he's basically saying he won't do, even though, as your guest pointed out, 3 months of no negotiation, that the industry is at 40% pay hikes and the workers want 77%. Obviously, that is a huge gulf, and there has been very little effort or ability to make that gulf smaller. So I think this is a disaster. And by the way, the second surge of inflation typically comes because workers demand outsized pay hikes to make up for the years where they've been behind because of inflation. That's, I think, the really scary prospect going forward. Boeing and now the longshoremen and their other unions also circling who want big pay hikes because of Biden's inflation problem.
I suggest that everyone stock up on essentials without panicking. There is no need to panic. You have loved ones who depend on you. So use your brain and be smart about the decisions you make for you and your family. What else?
It threatens to pretty much shut most things down and affect all of us from a financial perspective. So this should be a very interesting test for our current administration and for Kamala Harris, because I think that this is something that they can talk about in addition to immigration and in addition to financial policy. This is something that I want to see Kamala Harris speak about in particular. But let me give y'all an update on what's going on with this potential port strike.
These ports could stand still and the goods in these containers stalled if dock workers walk off the job. From Boston and New York all the way down to New Orleans and Houston, the International Longshoremen's Association represents at least 25,000 workers at these ports. They're at an impasse over a new 6-year contract. They want higher wages and less automation. The union boss in recent weeks defiant.
These companies are making billions of dollars. They should take us along.
Port officials preparing for a shutdown at midnight on Monday.
All activity in the Port of New York and New Jersey with regards to containerized cargo and automobile cargo will cease.
The United States Maritime Alliance, representing shippers and ports, blamed the union's, quote, repeated refusal to come to the table and bargain. A strike could cost up to $4.5 billion a day. Everything from canned goods and chocolate, car parts and electronics move through these ports. Some of the biggest retailers import goods here, like Walmart, Samsung, and Home Depot. George Berry owns a small trucking business and hauls shipping containers at the Port of Virginia.
It's actually something that touches every grocery store cart, right, and every family budget if you really game it out.
I'm going to read that shortly.
100%. We're looking at the possibilities of empty store shelves. We're looking at the possibility of homes stop being built because there's lumber needed, there's steel needed.
The president has the power to break a strike, but right now the White House says he is not considering doing that.
Christine, you mentioned retailers. Yeah. Will this affect the holiday shopping season?
So retailers have seen this coming, and they have been basically stockpiling their goods for the holiday shopping season. But if they move forward with a strike here, supply chain experts tell us for every day the ports are closed, it can take up to 5 days to catch up, Lester.
All right.
So every day, think about that for a minute, y'all. Every day that the port is closed, it could take up to 5 days to catch up. And a deal is not on the table. They are not negotiating. They're not even close to a deal. We have an election in November, less than 2 months away. and over 25,000 longshoremen all across the East Coast and the South are ready to strike and shut everything down. Now, before we get into the details, let me just say this. If there's ever a time that our president, the one that was just running for re-election just a couple of months ago, if there were ever a time for the president to step in, not for the symbolism that represented what it is that he did in the UAW, and when he was on the picket line for an hour and a half talking to people in order to get their endorsement, and Sean Fain sold out the UAW workers, which ultimately led to a lot of the layoffs that you're seeing right now. Never did anything with regard to making sure that he prevented outside sources such as Chinese automakers from still preparing to invade and take over all of the cars and all of the manufacturing, especially with regard to autos inside of the United States of America. They don't do anything. It's all symbolism, in my opinion, right? And so if there's ever a time for Kamala Harris, because we're going to talk about her, you can see it at the bottom of the screen. Kamala Harris visited the border. We're going to break that down. If there's ever a time for them to step in, now is the time. Now is the time for you to show leadership skills. Now is the time for you to prove to the people that you are a strong negotiator, that you understand it from both sides, from the worker side, and then also you understand it from the port side. Innovation, cutting costs, increasing speed, the ability to be able to get things through, limiting mistakes. All of those things are things that are on the table, right? Raises, how much should they make, considering that they are the first entry into the United States of America, safety issues. If there's ever a time for you to show us, to prove to the United States of America, to prove to the people that you are not just a puppet, a dummy, a person that is in place as a result of all of these things, because I hear Mark Cuban running around advocating for Kamala Harris, saying how awesome she is. Whatever. Okay, show us. Because for every day that they are shut down, they are saying that it can cost the United States of America up to $5 billion, and it will take 5 days because everything shuts down. Ships coming back and forth shut down. Truck drivers shut down. Stores shut down. Our infrastructure is so fragile. The way in which we move things, logistics. Remember when Kamala Harris said that one of the things that they solved, or that they finally got back in order after all of this time since we shut down after COVID, that one of the things that they got back in order was our logistics? I remember her saying that specifically. Why are they so quiet on this? Because it's been months, over 6 months that they've been talking about the ports, over 6 months that this has been on the table. Why is it always a midnight hour negotiation and they're not even at the table? Let's continue.
It is hard to believe, but today marks 6 months since the tragedy that brought down the Key Bridge. The Dolly cargo ship slammed into the bridge, bringing it down in just seconds. And that disaster claimed the lives of 6 men working on the bridge, filling potholes at the time. It also shut down the Port of Baltimore, as you know, for months until that wreckage of the bridge could be cleared away. The International Longshoremen's Association suing the Dolly's owners for loss of income. And the Port of Baltimore could be shut down all over again in less than a week now. As you know, we've been following negotiations with the ILA's contract expiring soon, and union officials threatening to walk off the job in just days in more than 30 cities all along the eastern seaboard and Gulf Coast. Kelsey Kusher breaks down the latest in negotiations for us and what could soon cripple our port.
Make sure y'all hit the like when y'all come in, because the likes is low. The likes is not reflective of the amount of people that's watching right now. So I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for hitting the like ahead of time.
And others across the country.
Well, the meeting was held behind closed doors, but a number of port workers came out to discuss the catastrophic impacts of this looming strike. Many of them telling me off camera that they are prepared to go on strike, but they're also nervous because they don't know where their next paycheck will come from. Behind closed doors at the Best Western in Baltimore City, 3 local longshoremen unions came together to discuss the looming strike at ports along the eastern seaboard. In just days, work at some of the busiest ports, including here in Baltimore, will come to a halt.
In terms of the strike, which we hope to avoid, everyone starts back at zero.
At a press conference Thursday, port workers shared their concerns about the strike, saying they're concerned when the work stops, so does their paychecks.
Once we exhaust our savings, I mean, we don't know what the next move is going to be. So we are quite unprepared, I mean, in all honesty.
The International Longshoremen's Association, which represents 45,000 dock workers at 36 U.S. ports, says they want better wages and protection from job-killing automation, and they're giving the U.S. Maritime Alliance until October 1st to agree to a new contract. But concern is growing as the deadline inches closer. East Coast and Gulf Coast ports handle roughly 43% of all U.S. imports, bringing in billions of dollars in imports ranging from car parts to pharmaceutical drugs, and a strike could mean higher shipping costs. Longshoreman Alonzo Key says while most port workers don't want the strike, they do want to be compensated for the dangerous work they do every day.
There are no second chances at the Port of Baltimore. It's an extremely dangerous job.
Now, that deadline is set for Tuesday, October 1st, but the good news is that there are still ongoing talks between both sides. However, many of the port workers tell me that they are prepared to close up shop on Friday, not knowing when they will return.
A lot of people don't realize how dangerous some of these jobs are. Have you noticed that you don't really see women in these jobs? You don't see women in these jobs. A lot of people don't realize there was an estimated 17, I believe it was 7. If I did some research, I believe it was 17 people that died last year at our ports that were longshoremen. It is incredibly dangerous. I don't think that women really appreciate men. They don't. I know that women all say, oh man, we can make this world go without y'all. Okay, so what happens when you got 25,000 longshoremen that decide that they don't want to go to work or that they're going to shut down? And this is before I start to get in and give you my opinion on whether they should or they shouldn't strike. But these are incredibly dangerous men. When you see linemen, and these are the people that keep our power on, when you see police officers, when you see longshoremen and stuff like that, these are largely people in jobs that go unheralded on a regular basis. Let's continue.
Welcome back. We are days away from a potential strike by 45,000 dock workers at more than 24 ports along the East and Gulf coasts. Negotiations remain at a standstill with half of the nation's cargo in limbo. Trucking companies are scrambling to move products off ships before things potentially grind to a halt on Tuesday. And now major shipping companies say they will be slapping a port disruption surcharge on all cargo coming to or from these terminals if a strike does go through. Joining me now is American Trucking Association's president and CEO, Chris Spear. Chris, great to have you. Thanks very much for being here. What's your reaction to this, and where do you think this is going?
Well, Maria, thanks for having me. I think the impact, if this strike occurs next Tuesday, is going to be significant, not just on the economy, but Americans, everybody that's in need of goods each day are going to feel the impact that this is going to have. We're talking 36 ports in the East and Gulf Coast that are represented here. 5 of the top 10 in the country are going to shut down on Tuesday. We're moving 12,000 trucks daily at Port of New York, New Jersey. This is very significant, especially on farmers. We're talking nearly half of the goods exported out of our ports come from these East Coast ports. We're talking produce, poultry, cotton. This is very significant on our farmers. That produce is going to be felt first in week 1 if this were to occur. People are going to have limited choice, and they're going to pay a lot more for it. So I appreciate you paying attention to this because it's coming.
Well, this is a great point that you're making. So produce gets hit first. And I was thinking that the real impact would be inflationary because obviously the supply-demand dynamics leads to higher prices for things. We're just trying to get inflation down, and perhaps we see another spike as a result of this.
Nope. Inflation is about to go up. It's going up again. It's going up. I promise you. The cost of doing business. Listen, while she's over there talking about this little stupid stuff, we're going to go after price gouging for grocers if we have another pandemic. Meanwhile, you got longshoremen that's saying that, hey, man, we about to strike. And it's really for two reasons. Number one, they want to get paid, just like everybody else. They want to get paid. They want to raise. They want to get some money. I can never fault people for saying that I want to get paid. And number two, they want job security. They don't want their jobs automated away, and they want to be able to take care of their families for the rest of their life. That's pretty much what it is.
This.
Absolutely. And trucks are the glue in all of this. Whether you move it on truck or rail, trucks are still going to move that last mile. And we're talking, large companies, but also the medium and small companies, independent contractors, owner operators. They're going to get hung out to dry if these ports shut. So
if you are a person that is interdependent on these products in order to move these goods back and forth throughout the United States of America, you SOL. Because see, listen, we saying that longshoremen, about to go on strike and they're not going to be getting paid and they're not going to make no money. But you got to understand, everybody else suffers. This is one of the rare situations. See, when you talk about the automotive industry, it's not as impactful as the longshoremen. I'm just going to be honest to God, it's not as impactful. Now, I do, I haven't been as intimate with the ideas of what's going on between longshoremen. And so this is something that I'm really, really starting to dig into because I've just started to get word about this probably a little over a week ago. I am familiar with the auto industry, the ins and outs. So that is something that I was an expert in. But the auto industry, even though we depend on the auto industry in order to continue to have jobs and move the economy forward, longshoremen, they like the glue. It's almost like truckers. Truckers are glue. Longshoremen are glue. Nothing moves. Nothing moves unless longshoremen is taken care of.
beyond the 85,000 ILA workers, we're talking thousands of other workers that support the supply chain. It's going to take a long time after a week to 2 weeks of shutdown for the economy to recover. So inflation is definitely an outcome from this.
Yeah, so if the truckers take on more load, doesn't that mean we see an impact to gasoline prices? I mean, oil prices have come off of the highs in the last couple of months. Does that reverse?
Absolutely. I think you're going to see repercussions that are going to last. So every week is about a month, 2-3 weeks, push out into a quarter to 2 quarters. You could see this spilling well into 2025. Having real repercussions. If the longer it plays out, the more impact you're going to have. So 36 ports, East Coast, Gulf Coast, this is very significant to the American economy. You can't reroute all this through the West Coast. So shutting down for terms and conditions that are completely out of reach, 70% pay increase, that's what the ILA is asking for. I think you and I would love a 70% pay increase, but that's not reality. So they need to come to the table. They need to get reasonable, and they need to get a deal.
So, and I agree. You can't give somebody a 70% pay increase. That is insane. That is absolutely insane. I don't even care if it's over a span of the whole 6-year contract. You can't give somebody else a 70-year increase. I think that they are more concerned with job security because even the union itself, the union thrives off of membership, and their ability to be able to retain members and also recruit allows for them to be.
But negotiations is about saying something preposterous and negotiating it, like the bosses did. 70, they offered them 50. That was no. So they're probably gonna work their way somewhere near 60. But yeah, they had to say something like 70 just to get their damn attention.
Able to thrive as a union. So I think that you can strike a healthy balance. And again, I believe that if our leadership, right, if they really wanted to put a stamp on something, if they really cared about the American economy, they really cared about inflation, they really cared about the price of goods, if they really cared about keeping the American economy humming and growing and all of this stuff that they say that they're doing, right? I believe that Kamala Harris and Biden, because Biden, he ain't even nowhere to be found, ain't stepping in, don't care nothing about it. They so focused on running down Eric Adams, it's not even a thing. If they really cared about the American economy, then this would be a something that they know that they have to get involved in, because you do not want the ports to go on strike, especially for anything over a week. That would be devastating to the American economy, especially since we just now starting to get ourselves out of what we was experiencing during the pandemic.
Well, the last time the Biden-Harris administration got involved in the strike negotiations, the workers got what they wanted. So I wonder.
These CEOs don't want to fold because it might be a chain reaction, and workers all over the country might start demanding what they really supposed to be getting because the elite been getting super, super rich even during COVID and been cutting us out. Now they want to automate everything and bring in the illegals. That's their plan. Automate everything and bring in the illegals.
Wonder where this goes. I mean, obviously the timing was on purpose, intentional timing right before the election. I'm wondering if, in fact, you do see Biden or Harris intervene here and perhaps give the workers what they want. How does this play out?
Well, if they're consistent, they're not going to come to the table. They haven't yet, and we're 5 days out. So this is really significant in terms of leadership. We've got a president, vice president, and an acting secretary of labor that have walked a picket line for the UAW. They are already in the pocket of big union bosses, and they've stated that. So if you're USMX representing the 36 ports, you have no incentive to come to the table if it's led by this administration, because they've already shown their cards. They're already in the pocket of labor. So there's no way that you can mediate with credibility. That's not leadership. We need it. We need it now.
So we'll see what happens. Again, I think that Biden he just out here shaking.
See, that's a major lie. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden is in the pocket of the workers. Lies. They don't care about no workers. That's why they're bringing in the illegals. And who bringing in the illegals? The Democrats. They don't that shit about no workers. Remember, Kamala wanted free slave labor in prison.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for being here. If you haven't already, please make sure that you follow my backup channel. You will find the links in the video description below. For the first time since 1977, 36 U.S. ports are now going on strike. They're shutting down. The 36 affected ports have the combined capacity to handle as much as half of all U.S. trade volumes. The union failed to come to an agreement with the United States Maritime Alliance prior to the expiration of the contract on September the 30th. Today is October the 1st, and this is just the beginning of what may become a truly catastrophic event for the United States economy. The head of the union vowed to stay on strike, quote, as long as necessary. For reference, shipping congestion resulting from a week-long strike would take about a month to clear. As of midnight October the 1st, container cargo, car shipments through ports came to a halt. The best person who can explain to anyone right now what the strike actually means is Harold Daggett, who is the International Longshoremen's Association president. This is very, very important. So please listen to what he has to say about the seaport strikes that are just beginning and what it may mean for the entire economy. And make sure that you share this video with those who may be interested and who may not know this information. Take a look.
But today's world, it's changing into the future. They're not making millions no more. They're making billions, and they're spending it fast as they make it. I want a piece of that for my men, because when they made their most money was during COVID. When my men had to go to work on those piers every single day, when everybody stayed home and went to work. Not my men. They died out there with the virus. We all got sick with the virus. We kept them going. From Canada to Maine to Texas, Great Lakes, Puerto Rico, now the Bahamas, everybody went to work during COVID. Nobody stayed home. Well, I want to be compensated for that. I'm not asking for the world. They know what I want. They know what I want. And if they don't, well, then I have to go into the street and we have to fight for what we rightfully deserve. These people today don't know what a strike is.
Right.
When my men hit the streets from Maine to Texas, every single port will lock down. You know what's going to happen? I'll tell you. First week, be all over the news every night, boom, boom. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. They get laid off. Third week, malls start closing down. They can't get the goods from China. They can't sell clothes. They can't do this. Everything in the United States comes on a ship. They go out of business. Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel's not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job. Everybody's hating the longshoremen now because now they realize how important our jobs are. Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back for 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the company's money to pay their salaries. Well, they went from 30 moves an hour maybe to 8. They're going to be like this. Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world. In today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you, and you have no idea what that means. Nobody does.
A strike is shutting down 5 of the 10 busiest ports in North America, and a total of 36 ports along the East and Gulf coasts. The last time when something very similar happened was actually more than 2 decades ago in 2002. At that time, an 11-day strike on the West Coast cost the United States economy close to $1 billion with a B, billion dollars every single day. But that is not even the worst part. It resulted in 6 months worth of backlogs because even though ships can be rerouted, and they were rerouted at that time too, the number of individuals who are working in those alternative ports that were open, it didn't change. So rerouting isn't exactly an ideal fix. It's not going to fix it. It is a band-aid. That was nothing compared to what is happening right now, what is beginning right now, with as many as 85,000 members of the International Longshoremen's Association walking out. What do longshoremen do? Well, they are actually the ones who move cargo between ships and trucks. Well, in other countries, this process is very automated. In the United States, it is not. So something to think about. With billions of dollars sent overseas to wage wars, our logistics is decades behind that of China, for example. I'm sorry to break it to you, but it's true. So no new imports will be unloaded from cargo vessels from this point on. Just a 1-week strike of this magnitude by the United States dock workers could cause several months of delays and cargo rerouting. Seaport strikes means no gas, no food, no bare necessities, no bare essentials, since everything is imported through those key shipping routes. America's economy could lose as much as $5 billion per day, and this is according to a JP Morgan estimate. One may ask, well, was the expiration of the contract a surprise? Did they forget about it? Why weren't negotiations taking place? Those are great questions. Seaports were aware of the expiration of the contract, and they actually attempted to negotiate with the union. Negotiations failed midsummer, and everyone started to prepare for port strikes as they appear to be unable to come to a solution. Financial Times writes, official negotiations never resumed. Executives and economists assumed Washington would intercede, as it did to prevent a freight rail strike in 2022, but the White House said last week they would not prevent labor action at the ports. Trade groups representing retailers, restaurants, manufacturers, food producers, and even fashion designers were urging the current administration to reverse their position. Of course, the current administration did not reverse its position because, well, I guess we are just left to guess and to assume exactly why they did not facilitate negotiations to make sure that a catastrophe of this magnitude is averted. This strike will impact everything: food prices, gasoline prices, shipping costs domestically to local grocery stores. This is very bad news. And of course, this happens right on October the 1st, just several weeks before the November event, let's call it that. Comment below and let me know if you believe in coincidences. I would love to hear from you.
National Longshoremen's Association's first strike in nearly 50 years.
Analysts say a dock strike could cost the economy about $5 billion a day.
These big owners not taking care of the people that get them there.
45,000 dock workers went on strike today. We have $5 billion that will be lost every day that the dock workers are on strike. We have 36 ports shut down from Maine to Texas. This strike has the potential to be the black swan in the U.S. economy. I'm being serious, guys. This strike itself can literally itself take down the U.S. economy.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
Guys, listen, this is something that we need to talk about. This is a big one. And it's not only big from the surface level of where we are in the economy and where the strikes are. This strike is so important because of the players that are involved in this. And how long do we think this is going to last? Guys, this is a tough one, but we need to go over it. My name is Orlando. Welcome to the channel, guys. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. It really does help out the channel. Also, I have a newsletter that will give you tremendous value. Yes, tremendous value, and it's free. How can you beat free? You cannot. And as always, if you need any type of commercial or investment financing, I've been a lender for almost 20 years. I can assist you with that.
Because these guys have been here since midnight when their contract expired. So obviously people are a little tired as the sun rises this morning. But right now, hundreds of workers here picketing at Port Newark after that contract expired. The International Longshoremen's Association's first strike in nearly 50 years. This strike has essentially shut down ports all across the eastern seaboard from Maine to Texas. On Monday, the ILA rejected the U.S. Maritime Alliance's final contract proposal. The union is demanding better wages and more protections against automation.
You guys know what my position is on these companies. These companies aren't loyal. Do what you have to do for you and your family. Get as much money as you possibly can, whatever you got to do.
Goddamn right.
So the strike portion, I think everybody kind of knew that it was coming, right? There could have been a contract that was signed right before midnight to kind of solve all this, but the way it was looking, the negotiations just weren't panning out, and it looked like we were going to hit this strike, and these guys knew exactly. They're playing chess. They knew exactly that they were going to ask for a pay increase this year because it is an election year. And I don't blame them. Do what you have to do. But the importance of this strike, guys, I need you guys to hear this. The importance of this strike is really big, and the timing is, it couldn't be worse. It couldn't be worse. Remember when I say this all the time, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And what has this whole year been? It's been pretty bad when it comes to the economy.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have problems.
And I am getting more and more and more layoff videos. Every morning I wake up, there's 6 or 7 more layoffs that are happening. And these aren't small numbers. I expected this to really show up, and I figured that they weren't going to get a deal done because of what they're asking for. And what they're asking for is a big pay increase that'll last over, I think it's like 77% over the next 6 or 7 years of an increase. And they want increase in 401ks and some other stuff and protections against automation, which is artificial intelligence. They don't want to be replaced by robots. And I get that. I totally understand that. But the significance of this, guys, I need you guys to understand this. This will ripple affect how much things cost, how soon you get things, your holiday seasons, and wait until next year. Let's be clear. A lot of these indicators that will happen in this $5 billion a day loss, do you guys understand that? $5 billion a day. If you think that this isn't going to have a ripple effect that will probably, you won't see the chunk of it until next year after the holiday season, you're madly mistaken.
Why you crazy?
Let's hear exactly what the port workers are saying. What is the sentiment there and what's actually happening?
What message do you have for JD Vance and Tim Walz?
The message I have is I hope you can be influential in doing something about these big owners not taking care of the people that get them there.
Yeah. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Orlando, why would he take the time instead of preaching and telling everybody on national TV what they're fighting for? Why would he take the time to pitch something towards politicians? Well, I could tell you the reason why. Well, if you guys didn't know, with this strike, the president has the executive authority to shut the strike down. That you heard me. The President Biden, can literally do an executive order and say, we're going to force you back to work. Forget your pay. Go back to work. He can do that. Just on the agreement to sign his name. And they have to go back to work.
I didn't think you had it in you. And I mean that.
And you guys know my channel isn't politics. But in this layoff, there is some politics there. There is some games being played because of the election year. And these guys know it. The union leaders know it. That's the reason why they're saying to these guys, listen.
If you go ahead and make a choice that is against us, we may not vote for you.
Sensational.
That's kind of what they're saying there. So we have a scenario here where I don't believe that the president will do that, right? He won't do that. It really is a bad move to do that. He just might as well just let it play out, because if you go ahead and you force people back to work, you're gonna have people just quitting because of the pay. It's just gonna look bad. Union is gonna say bad things. It's just not gonna work out in the favor of whoever says no to it. So no one's gonna say no to it. Everybody's just gonna kind of let it play out to see the way it is. It is interesting because of this factor, is that how long can the president allow the economy to go down, down, and down without some type of a mutual agreement between the port workers and the employer?
Thousands of dock workers at ports from Maine to Texas could walk off the job tomorrow if a contract agreement is not reached. The sticking points are better pay and job protection from automation. A strike could affect nearly half of the nation's imports, leading to a massive supply chain disruptions and surging prices. Analysts say a dock strike could cost the U.S. economy about $5 billion a day. While President Biden has the authority to intervene, administration officials say he is not planning to do so.
Again, I mentioned this early in the video. I also don't see the president intervening. It's just too risky. Political, he's headed out. He's got to take care of his party, and the other side's got to take care. So I could just see a hands-off event happening right now. They want these guys to solve this as soon as possible, because here's the thing: nobody wins in this scenario.
Wait, what?
I'm telling you, no one wins in this scenario. Either side doesn't win. Nobody wants to go in or be left with an economy that's in shambles. And the way that we're going, it's going to be that way. If you think as a port worker, and again, I've said this over and over again, let me say it one more time. I want you to have a job. I want you to get the most that you possibly can get. But if you think that there will not be any consequences from this strike, and you think that a politician is going to save you in either direction, you think that a politician is going to know your name and know your family and treat you as such, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. These guys will lay you on a tray, stick you right in the oven.
You're nothing to me now.
And I'm trying to let you guys know that even in situations like this, where you think that you have all the pieces in play, you think you got the opposition, the people, the companies, the politicians all on one side, and you got them exactly where you want them. If they give in to you and give you exactly what you want, it won't be everybody. I need you to understand that. I need you to understand that it won't be everyone. It is 45,000, 50,000 of you guys, and you think that every last one of you will get exactly what you want with no consequences. That means no layoffs. That means no pay reductions. That means no furloughs. That means the best of the best of the best all the way across. It's not happening.
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
Where have we seen this before? We've seen this story. Yes. Is it a different story? Yes, it is. But it's the same theme and plot every single time.
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
And 6 months from now, look, I even made this prediction with Boeing, and 30 minutes later, 3 hours later, they were already cutting people on the chopping block. They were literally giving out papers as I was releasing my video. They did it fast. That was at $100 million. Nothing, a drop in the bucket compared to what's happening right now.
Lindsay, the biggest issues in this negotiation are wages and automation. I'm told that these two sides are at an impasse on those issues, and at this point, a deal is unlikely. Governor Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, just spoke in this building behind me here at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey headquarters, and she said that she is fully expecting a strike. So that means 47,000 dock workers will walk off the job if the International Longshoremen's Association and the U.S. Maritime Alliance do not reach a deal today, Lindsay.
Do you guys see this? This is what the dock workers are asking for. 77% wage increase over the next 6 years. Job protection from automation, which is basically AI, robots. They do not want to be replaced with robots in the next 10 years, where it's kind of leading that way in the direction. Things are getting scanned. Robots are picking things up, dropping them in place, packing the metal containers, sorting. It's all really done by computers. It's pretty much managed by humans. And they don't want to be shut out of that whole entire scenario where they are no longer even managing it. Again, these guys are fighting to protect themselves, their families. I get that. And I salute that. I think you should 100% do that.
Yeah, damn right.
I'm the other guy on your shoulder. and I'm whispering, but do you think that everyone will get that? Do you think these companies won't try to screw you over? Do you think that if you stretch this out long enough, that politicians that you guys believe in will come in to save you and say, we will force these guys to pay you. We will force you to go back to work. We will force blah, 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 blah. Do you believe that is the case? Because if you do, we don't want to be in a Boeing situation, guys. Port workers. Port workers. I'm telling you, you don't want to be Boeing in this situation.
In the region, Boeing is now threatening sweeping cuts and layoffs as they now enter day 5 of a machinist strike.
You don't want to be a Boeing employee thinking that you're going to get the world. And then you get, like Illinois or something. You're like, oh. I mean, we asked for the world and they gave us Illinois.
He got cooked.
I think, unfortunately, we have a lot of people who are in this space here who really think that is not a possibility. The only possibility is them to get 100% slam dunk when, they want to do a straight shutout of 4 NBA games, winning by 100 on each one.
Come on, man. That's too easy.
If dock workers strike, what will be the impact on the nation's supply chain? How soon could we start seeing shortages or price spikes?
So economists say that this could be the biggest disruption to the flow of goods in and out of the U.S. since the height of the pandemic. I want to put this into perspective for you here. Governor Hochul, for example, just told us that New Yorkers should maybe, if they're planning on buying a car this week, they might want to call the car dealership ahead to make sure there are no issues with that. But she also urged people to not overreact. She said that she's not expecting a shortage of essential goods anytime soon. She also said that some distributors have been stockpiling goods to make sure that the impact of this is mitigated or limited in some way.
They're saying, don't worry. Hey, you may have to call your car dealership, that's in town, or you may have to call them and double check if you want to buy that BMW or that Hellcat. They're telling you, you may want to call in advance and say, do y'all have that 2024, 2025 Hellcat or BMW 7 Series? That's what they're saying. Because if you don't do that, they won't have enough. But don't panic. Don't panic. Because here's the thing. If you do call your car dealership, and if they do have that BMW or Hellcat, you don't think they're going to sell it at a premium?
You've been bamboozled.
Some of you guys, listen, I'm talking to you. You're going to get a do-over. Not really, but you could theoretically get a do-over. You bought a car during the pandemic, and now the opportunity is to buy a car right now. I'm telling you, they're going to charge you a premium.
Man, I'm dead.
Remember when you bought that BMW or that Hellcat or that Mercedes, that $100,000 car, but you bought it for other people to see, but it stayed in the garage? Nobody saw it but you. Remember that? Remember that feeling. Don't jump off the ledge and buy that expensive car, because again, I know what the gentleman on the newscast said. He said, listen, just don't panic. Don't worry. Everything's going to be fine. Here's one thing you can guarantee. It's not going to be cheaper with this going on, with the port strike going on, with cars being delayed, sitting on the ocean. It's not going to be cheaper. Is it going to be more expensive? You bet your bottom dollar it is. Some of you guys won't believe me. It's like my grandmother used to say, you don't believe fat meat is greasy. Now, listen, I understand some of you guys may not know what that means, but it basically means a lot of people want to learn the hard way. It's unfortunate, but that is the truth. I'm telling you guys, mark my word. Go ahead. Things will be more expensive all the way around.
What if that could happen on the overall U.S. economy? I mean, that figure, $5 billion a day.
So economists have told us that even a 2-week strike could cause issues and disruptions in the economy into the next year. Now, there is some good news here as far as something that might be on a lot of people's minds right now: holiday shopping. Those toys and those toys that people want, the presents that they're trying to get for their kids, things like that. Most of that is already on in the warehouses and ready to go here. So there won't be a huge impact in that regard.
Sorry, guys. Oh, man. Look, if it isn't one thing that America is just loves to do, they love to sell. And they're trying to sell you on, hey, look, we know all this stuff is going on. We know that the economy is going down. We know that there's this strike happening, that goods are going to go up. But don't worry, because you could still use your 36% credit card to buy products that are made in China that we think will go up. Huh? And again, these guys are telling you this because they're saying that people knew that this strike was happening. This wasn't some secret. Everybody kind of saw that it was going in that direction. So a lot of store owners, Walmart, Amazon, they stacked up, they're saying. They stacked up their holiday goods. But the question is, yeah, they stacked up the holiday goods, but wouldn't that mean that they still have a limited supply? And here's the thing. When a store or a company has a limited supply of everything, what do? I mean, I'll wait. Put it in the comment section. What does a company do if they have a limited supply of goods to give? Oh, that's right. They sell them at normal prices. Oh, that's right. They actually drop the price, right? Isn't that what happens with a limited supply? Only if we had an example of what limited supply does to people when they try to sell something. Only if we had a time where there were low toilet tissue. You couldn't buy meat and all this other stuff because it was just a shortage. What happened to those goods? Did they go down or up in price? This is what I'm talking about, guys, at the end of the day. At the end of the day, this is craziness. If you think that prices will go down, we already know prices are high. We know this. Bacon, ragu sauce, all of it, it's expensive. We know this. And if you think that prices will go down, I don't know what to tell you.
Use your common sense.
I need you to be cautious. I need you going into the holiday season, be cautious at what you buy. How do you beat something like this? Oh, I can tell you, don't buy goods on credit cards at 36% interest. But make sure that when you buy these holiday gifts, that you're getting a good price, it's affordable to you. And here's the biggest thing. Do you really need the items? Do you really need those items? Do you really need an 8th TV in your house? Do you really need that new PS5 Pro? That's $700. That doesn't do anything. That's a waste of money. That doesn't even have a disk drive.
However, there could be some impact to fresh fruit down the road. There could be some impact to fish that's imported. There could be an impact in the grocery store, and that could in turn affect prices, Lindsay.
Tim McNicholas, thank you so much for joining us.
So at the very end of it, he comes to the conclusion that, well, there may be some price increase. Meat and chicken and all these other things that are imported, yeah, there could be a little bit, guys. Don't worry, a little bit.
Do you believe me yet?
As always, guys, I've made this video long enough, but the truth of the matter is the reason why this video is important to me is because it can really
When my men hit the streets from Maine to Texas, every single port, a lockdown. You know what's going to happen? I'll tell you. First week, be all over the news every night, boom, boom. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. They get laid off. Third week, malls start closing down. They can't get the goods from China. They can't sell clothes. They can't do this. Everything in the United States comes on a ship. They go out of business. Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel's not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job. Everybody's hating the longshoremen now because now they realize how important our jobs are. Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back for 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the company's money to pay their salaries. Well, they went from 30 moves an hour maybe to 8. They're going to be like this. Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world. In today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you, and you have no idea what that means. Nobody does.
Are you worried that this strike is going to hurt the everyday American, the farmers that need to reach the export market?
Listen, now you start to realize who the longshoremen are, right?
Nobody cares.
People never gave a shit about us until now, when they finally realized that the chain is being broke now. Cars won't come in. Food won't come in. Clothing won't come in. You know how many people depend on our jobs? Half the world. And it's time for them and time for Washington to put so much pressure on them to take care of us because we took care of them. And we're here 135 years and brought them where they are today, and they don't want to share. And I'm done.
Just one question. What will it take to get you back into negotiations? What do you want to hear?
Oh, here, you want to hear it? $5 across the board for 6 years. I want all my container royalty, 50-50 split. It all comes back to the island where it used to be. What was the other one?
Absolutely no automation.
And automation, stronger language. To get me back to the table. If I don't get that, I'm not coming back to the table. And if we have to be out here a month or 2 months, this world will collapse. Don't blame them. Don't blame me. Blame them.
We start the top of the hour this
Morning with a Fox 5 News alert. Thousands of dock workers are on strike, causing ports across the U.S. to close.
Yeah, in total, 36 ports shutting down, including the port of Baltimore. Melanie Allenwick is there right now live, and she appears to be telling us since this morning that it's been heating up there, and it hasn't been a pleasant sight for many folks, especially the drivers coming in.
We have just entered October, and you know what that means. That means the October surprise. Now, there is some confusion when it comes to the October surprise because some people believe that the world is going to end, or if the world doesn't end, then nothing happens. But no, that's not what it means. What it means is something big happens politically where it affects all of us. I was getting those comments where people were saying, well, Minutes of Horror, if nothing happens, are you going to delete your channel? If the world doesn't end, are you going to delete your channel? You know, those kind of comments. Well, I mean, things have been happening in September. A lot of events have happened at one time. So going based off that estimation, I wouldn't say nothing at all will happen in October. But again, it would not involve the world ending. Sorry if I sound a little different, or like I said in my last video, if I sound hoarse or anything like that. I'm still coming down with something. I feel really, really bad. Matter of fact, I might have to take a few days off from recording. There's just so much going on in the news. I don't want to miss anything. I was out of town over the weekend, and almost everywhere I went, restaurants, stores, no matter where I went, people were clearing their throats. They were coughing. So more than likely something is indeed going around. But going back to this October surprise, we really could be looking at it with this port strike. I do believe there are still people out there that do not realize just how important and serious this is. There are powers, there are certain organizations that really want to cripple the dollar, not just the dollar, but also other currencies, to introduce the digital currency and the digital IDs. What's very interesting is that this strike comes directly after the World Economic Forum and the United Nations had that meeting to speed up the 2030 agenda. And one part of the 2030 agenda is to introduce that digital dollar, that one world currency, that one world government. You think this is just fear mongering. You think this is just fear because that's what I constantly hear. But no, this is information, and you can look this up yourself. You can go to the United Nations 2030 agenda website where they lay out what they have in store for the future. They also say we need 7 years of accelerated transformative action to achieve these policies. These policies they lay out for every country around the world to follow. But going back to the strike, this walkout could cost the American economy roughly $5 billion a day. Now, again, you're going to hear some people say that this is not going to happen. Nothing ever happens. But if you go back to the C-19 and the lockdowns and the inflation that happened after the lockdowns, that inflation still has not really come back down. We are still feeling the effects of the C-19. So don't let anybody fool you into believing that something like this won't happen. This has been something that was planned. This is something that was scripted. Like I pointed out on the 2024 Economist magazine cover, that was created back in November of 2023. They had shown us on that cover the economy crashing, but linked right next to the economy crashing was a cargo ship. You cannot make this up. This is all pre-planned. There was an update today that the union was offered a nearly 50% increase in wage, and they turned it down. The goal here is not to get more money. The goal here is to cripple the United States economy.
I come here for 7 years. I pull the trash and the debris out of here for the Port of Baltimore, and the officer told me to come back and go in there to get out of my way, and they attacked me and broke the windshield and lacerated my face. Look at it.
Now, we don't know exactly what happened. The union members said the truck hit one of the picketers as they swarmed around it. We did see an ambulance come to assist, and we know that that gentleman did speak with police officers. Again, we'll let the authorities sort out exactly what happened there. Now, 45 members of the International Longshoremen's Association, 45,000 members. That's a big difference in the number, isn't it? They have all been asking for a 77% pay increase over 6 years and a ban on automation at their ports, a threat to their jobs, they say.
There is also a bigger picture here in the fact that it's not just about money, but these longshoremen, this union, does not want any automation whatsoever to affect their jobs or be a part of their jobs. They want everything to be done by humans. The president of the union local said he can recall the days when longshoremen unloaded 150-pound sacks of sugar by hand. He acknowledges that machinery has made the job easier, but he worries that the ports need fewer people to handle the equipment. But these people need to understand this is the way the world is going. Everything's going to be AI. Everything's going to be run by technology. We will see less and less people doing these jobs. That's just how it is. No matter how much you strike, it's not going to stop automation. So this is something absolutely crazy to strike over. And we can see that this is all pre-planned. This is all scripted. The people who are currently striking do not realize that they are going to lose their jobs, their current jobs, to people who are willing to do these jobs much, much less. We saw this back in the 80s when Reagan fired all those airline controllers when they were going on strike. No difference here. The only difference here is that there are more and more people that they are bringing over that are willing to do these jobs for much less. And at the same time, they will also introduce more and more automation where these jobs will be 100% automated. While this whole script is going on, we here in the public, we here in the lower end, will pay dearly with our pockets. We always do when anything goes wrong with the economy. But in any case, I do want to hear from
Panic buying is spreading across America as dock workers continue to strike at ports along the East Coast.
Yeah, some people are stocking up on things like paper towels and toilet paper, leaving store shelves empty. But do we really need to be doing that? KTLA's Aaron Myers live in Commerce with that answer. Aaron, good morning.
Good morning, Megan. Good morning, Chris. Well, according to experts, you don't need to buy in bulk or panic buy when it comes to toilet paper or paper towels. Those should be okay. There are other items, though, like certain fruits that we may see less of. Now, we're outside of the Costco in Commerce, and Costco's to be affected. They are the ones that are seeing those items flying off the shelves. We'll go ahead and get into some pictures. Take a look at this photo. This is from Buford, Georgia, where the toiletry shelves were empty. Also at a Costco in Santa Clarita, the shelves where toilet paper normally resides empty as well. Video also captured the lack of supplies at a Sam's Club in the Santa Clarita area, and these were all posted on social media. According to CNN, once the port strike started, reports of empty shelves, especially for toilet paper, started popping up on social media, though the outlet says the strike will not affect toilet paper much, as the majority of toilet paper comes from U.S. factories, and much of the rest comes from Canada and Mexico, meaning it probably arrives by train or truck, not a ship. Now, people are apparently buying paper towels as well, which shouldn't be affected much either. Now, the strike could affect U.S. exports, which in turn could hurt sales for some American companies. We may also see less of certain items, leading to prices going up.
As a consumer, there is a concern because prices are already high as it is, and if anything that's done that gets involved with transportation and prices, it's gonna come out to us. We're gonna have to pay the cost for it. So.
The items we could see shortages with include bananas. Imports are said to account for almost all of the U.S. supply of bananas. Also, other fruits like cherries, alcohol, chocolate, seafood, along with electronics, pharmaceuticals, cars, auto parts, and machinery parts, according to USA Today. And when it comes to goods arriving, we could see backlogs as shipments will have to be sent to the West Coast. Now, the strike is affecting ports from Maine to Texas. Now, back here live, the Costco here in Commerce is set to open at 7 o'clock this morning, just about half an hour. So we'll see if it gets busy. We did speak to an employee here who told us this morning that they haven't seen anything at this one having shortages just yet. Nothing flying off the shelves here, but they did tell us it was busier than normal yesterday. Reporting live here in Commerce, I'm Aaron Myers. I'll send it back.
About inflation, here's another event that could cause prices to go up. And what that is the East Coast port strike. First time ever, possibly since 1977. We're talking about an association with 85,000 members, the International Longshoremen's Association. This is the North American's largest longshoremen's union, about to strike after midnight tonight. I'm shooting it on Monday tonight. Let me tell you why this is important to you. Here's what they're asking for. Of these 85,000 members, roughly 45,000 of the workers are involved. They're asking for a 77% raise for the next 6 years. This is 36 ports. Roughly 43% of all U.S. imports pass through these ports. This is the first time they may be going through a strike since 1977. And they're worried because automation could lead to job reductions by 15 to 30%. And you should know about this. You know why? Here's a number for you. Watch this. Port of New York and New Jersey handles $240 billion of annual goods. A strike just in one of these ports could cost $641 million in one of the ports. The one in Virginia could cost $600 million a day. We're going to talk about that today. If you get value out of this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Okay, so why are they doing this? So the East Coast workers are saying, look, why don't you match our salary with the West Coast workers? They work 40 hours a week. You pay them $116,000 a year, but you're paying us only $81,000 a year. We want a raise. So are they asking to match that number? Because that raise would be a 43% raise. But they're not asking for a 43% raise. They're asking for a 77% raise, which would be $143,000. One, unions doing their part. The other is the fact that they're worried automation, 15 to 30% of jobs could be eliminated. So they're doing their part, and union and these guys are going back and forth. And by the way, it's so nasty. Let me read a couple quotes to you here. I think everyone's a bit nervous about it, says Mia Ginter, director of North American Ocean Shipping for C.H. Robinson, a logistics company. The rhetoric this time with the ILA is at a level we have never seen before. This is from CBS News. They're nervous. This is legit. Now, how will you be affected by it? Well, let's go through these things. What products will be affected by it? When you look at the top importing companies exposed to this strike, just in the last 12 months, you'd have Walmart, IKEA, Samsung, Bob's Discount Furniture, LG, Home Depot. Look at the list of names. Amazon, General Motors, Michelin, Heineken, Pepsi. Then, if you go to the different ports, this one's New York and New Jersey, GM, Globus, LG, Samsung, again, Heineken, Continental Tire, Volkswagen, IKEA. You see the names. You may shop at these places. The one in Virginia, Walmart, IKEA, QVC. You got Ace Hardware, Dr. Pepper, 7-Up, Home Depot. These are things you and I buy. This is the one at Savannah. Savannah, you'll see again Walmart. You'll see again Hyundai, IKEA, LG, Electronics. A lot of the similar names. Amazon again. You know, this next one is Houston. People are being affected by it. Now, product-wise, what will be affected? What's going to go up if these guys continue? So in a couple of these places, when we look at this, perishable items at risk. Bananas. 25% of the nation's bananas move through ports that could go on strike. 25% of the bananas. Cherries, other perishable fruits transported affected through these ports. Imported alcohol, wine, beer, hard liquor, raw materials, cocoa, sugar, non-perishable items, furniture, appliances. Port of Baltimore handles the large volume of auto imports in the U.S., a critical point for the auto industry. Exemptions and exceptions are military cargo. The union has pledged to continue handling military shipments even during the strike. All right, while this is going on, Pete Buttigieg and Julie Su have urged negotiations, but Biden-Kamala Harris administration has ruled out invoking the Taft-Hartley Act, which is from the 40s. You know what that is? That's when the union, they're like, hey, you're trying to take advantage of these companies and the employers. You're forcing employers, put them in a bad situation. You guys better come back to work or else you lose your benefits. They're not going to want to do that right now. You know why? Because of a couple things. One, what has been the economy dealing with the last 2 years that a guy named Jerome Powell just lowered the rates by 0.5 basis points a week and a half ago? You know why? To kind of mess with the inflation. Says, guys, can we lower the interest rate? Oh my God, thank you for this 0.5 basis point. Stock market's going back up. No one's talking about inflation anymore until this year. So you know who's going to feel this? Do you remember when all of a sudden you were trying to buy a used car, all this other stuff, you're feeling the prices? Wait a minute. Why did this go up all of a sudden? What's going on with this stuff? What are you talking about? I need this thing. We can't get the chips from China. What? The chips from China? Who cares about the chips? Well, guess what? Most of these chips for ACs, for cars, all this stuff. That's why used car prices are 30% higher. Oh, I can't afford to buy it. If this happens to you, the next 35 days, you know what's going on in 35 days? It's this thing called election, November 5th. And if we're talking about just one of the ports, $600 million a day, that's the one in Virginia. And the other one is $641 million a day. Just the two of them together is $1.2 billion a day. That's 2 out of 36 ports. Do $1.2 billion over the next 35 days. You know what that is? Roughly $42 billion, not including the other 34. You think a Harris, Biden administration wants to deal with that? You think you want to deal with that? Do you want that? You don't want that, right? This is going on right now, and it's things like this at the wrong time that can impact the other party, because Trump is a guy that capitalizes off his opportunities. Guess what he's going to be saying tomorrow? If I was president, this would have never happened to you. I cannot believe the union didn't take care of you. And by the way, when you think union, what side do you typically think about? Jimmy Hoffa, left or right? Left. We got you. We're not going to let the employer like Ford take advantage of you guys. Why is Ford Motor Company allowing you to work 69 hours a week? We're going to come and save you. We're the union. You're only going to work 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week, and they're going to pay you overtime. And now you don't get this union of 85,000 workers, and you've always been the one that gets the Dems. And a recent union came out and said, we're not endorsing anybody this for the first time. We're not endorsing anybody from left. They've been endorsing people from the left. Terrible timing for Kamala Harris. Horrible timing. But even a worse timing for the consumer, which is you, which that's what you care about, how this is going to affect your pocketbook. If you got value out of this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And
And ports are still far apart on negotiations this morning, and worry that the strike will last for weeks could be fueling a surge in panic buying. Stores across the country are starting to see empty shelves, really long lines. This is one in Virginia. I'm sure we all remember the hoarding and supply chain issues during the pandemic. News Nation senior investigative reporter Rich McHugh is at the Port of Elizabeth in New Jersey. And Rich, these supply chain fears will only grow the longer this strike lasts. How far apart exactly are these two sides?
Well, good morning, Marky. It's hard to say exactly from the owner's perspective of the port, but in talking with some of the longshoremen here this morning, they are dug in, prepared for a long fight if needed, and it's like a party atmosphere out here. They're not going anywhere. Most goods that come through here for Americans, everything we eat, wear, use, comes through ports like this. Most of them, not all. Last year alone, it was $588 billion worth of goods come through ports like this one. And people are freaking out, and it has people buying in panic. Take a look.
From Maine to Texas, dock workers at 36 ports along the eastern U.S. have walked off the job for the first time in decades, raising serious questions about disruptions to the supply chain and the possibility of widespread shortages if this continues. Here in New Jersey, customers at Costco stocking up in case.
I needed supplies. I had no choice. And of course, I'm like anybody else anticipating a long-range strike at the port. So that's why I'm got a trunk full of stuff.
Cases of water, paper towels, and the elusive toilet paper.
People were living with 7 or 8 in their carts, and there's none. And they said, come back tomorrow.
Social media posts like these popping up about runs on water, toilet paper, showing shelves normally overflowing with paper towels, now barren. Chris Spear, CEO of the American Truckers Association, predicts consumers will see shortages in the produce section as early as this week.
2 weeks, 3 weeks, you're going to start to see things slip into the holiday season.
I want the community to start preparing. I want them to go get essentials. You don't have to rush panic buy, but I do want them to have some essentials at their house. Toilet paper, paper towels, things of that nature.
The Biden administration hoping to avoid chaotic scenes of hoarding like this from 2020 at the start of the pandemic. They say they're working nonstop with both sides to push the negotiations forward.
Now, Americans have such PTSD from the pandemic, but one silver lining here, Marky, is that toilet paper, paper products, paper towels do not come through here. They're made in America or Canada and Mexico, and so do not come through here in there's no need to rush out and buy these products, Marky.
Okay, really good to know. Rich, I was telling you yesterday, I've been to Target every day for 2 weeks trying to find my daughter's baby formula that comes from the UK. Store shelves have been empty, but you don't want to mass buy because I don't want to become part of the problem, and panic buy and not save some for other parents too.
It's scary.
It's scary. Yeah, Rich McHugh, thank you so much. Really great report. Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to Join In.
This is Dabu 7, and what we are witnessing is definitely a setup. As we're facing this grid apocalypse now in the Carolinas, they're saying that substations are down all across the board, hundreds of them, around 360 to be exact, and that they don't think that they can get them for months to come. Now, on top of this, we're coming to find out that the Biden administration just sent a bunch of transformers and components for the power grid over to Ukraine. So, along with billions being sent to Ukraine, so too is this equipment. And they're trying to say that because of all these things, there's a shortage. Now, add in the port strike. Again, the timing, it's like it's a setup. Now they're saying with that kicking off, it could be a year or more. They're already saying the stretch of highway that got wiped out there in Tennessee isn't going to be rebuilt until 2025. This is devastation. And I don't think that the people that don't live in this area are getting it. This is large scale devastation, the type that could come in and cripple a country economically. There are people stranded right now, people that are going to be in the dark for a long time, people that have lost everything on just a massive scale. Not to mention the area which it hit and that's underwater is some of the main areas connected to the economy in terms of mining and things like that. This definitely seemed tactical. The timing of everything is highly suspect, and it's got the American people in a bad situation where we need help quick. So a shout outs to everyone out there that helps their neighbors or they can help in this situation. We're also hearing reports that people are being turned away in certain areas that are coming down there with goods. All I can say is if you get any of this on film, let me know. Dabu7@yahoo.com. I'll be talking about this more on the live streams.
Has been a lot of strange news recently, and in this video, I do want to look at some strange events that are currently happening around the world. Some of this news has been coming out as recent as yesterday and even today. So because so much is happening around the world, I'm going to go ahead and condense these topics down to one video instead of making multiple videos. So if you would like to see me make videos in the future where I talk about multiple events in one video, please do comment in the comment section below. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these strange news topics. Now, the first one I do want to go ahead and talk about happens to be that there is a stark increase of heart attacks in young people, and they do not know what's causing it. But if you know, you know. We that know what's actually going on here, but they do not want to say it. Now, I'm reading this article from Yahoo News. Multiple news agencies are talking about this topic, but they all pretty much have the same talking points. Now, again, this article was published on October 2nd, 2024. It is titled, Heart Attacks in Young People Are Rare, but Rates Are Rising. Experts point to 4 possible reasons. Now, I do want to say this is going to be a spoiler alert, but one of the reasons that the public has been aware of for quite some time, a certain something that has been causing heart inflammation, is oddly missing from this article. And you can guess as to why. This article begins with how there are young, healthy, slim, and fit people find themselves having heart attacks out of nowhere. For example, when paramedics responded to a 911 call from the mother of a Raquel Hutt, they saw a slender, scared 24-year-old and assumed that the crazy shooting pains down her left arm were the result of her having a panic attack. Because it's true, they saw a slim 24-year-old, and the last thing they would think about is a heart attack. But when she arrived to the ER, it was confirmed she was indeed having a heart attack. And when she was explaining her history to the doctors, they could not make any sense of it because she was not whatsoever the typical heart attack patient. She was absolutely healthy, other than her having this heart attack that came out of nowhere.
Trying to unravel the mystery of young heart attacks, Dr. Deepak Bhatt, director of Mount Sinai Fuster Heart Hospital in New York City. He's looking into patients presenting with no known risk factors like diabetes, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol. Dr. Bhatt says 12% of heart attack patients don't have those risk factors.
We're seeing younger people come in like we never used to see before.
Why is that?
Well, that's a great question. I think there are a lot of reasons for that. One probably has to do with the obesity epidemic, but it could also be other things. I hate to say it, but there's more substance abuse these days, things like cocaine, for example, even smoking marijuana.
Another potential clue, long smoldering inflammation.
And I'm talking about inflammation in the arteries, supplying blood to the heart. That might lead to the plaque in that artery to act up, in fact, to rupture, a blood clot to form. If that blocks the blood flow in that artery, that's what causes a heart attack or heart muscle damage.
The cause of inflammation in seemingly healthy people like Matthias, who are not obese and don't smoke, is not yet clear.
Before we do get deeper into this article, young people can have heart attacks. Yes, that is true. It's very, very rare, but it can happen. Usually, a young person having a heart attack, they have some kind of genetic defect or some kind of birth defect. But the thing is, they are finding out more and more these young people who are having heart attacks, they were healthy. Matter of fact, some of them do not even have a family history of heart disease, yet they're getting these mysterious heart attacks out of nowhere. And reading from this article and other articles, it's actually becoming more and more common.
Did you eat a lot of red meat?
No.
Did you drink?
Very, very little, I would say, social.
How's the stress?
I wasn't a stressed out person at all.
Now, I know what some of you may be asking, Minutes of Horror, what was this person's jab status? Now, when I say jabs and pokes, I have to be very careful what I'm talking about here because the C-19, even to this day, is still a sensitive topic. You won't believe it, but they are still trying to get people jabbed up. The thing is, we don't know, and more than likely, we will never know when it comes to these stories of young people, young, healthy people having heart attacks out of nowhere. That is one thing that mainstream news seems to leave out. Matter of fact, they won't even make that connection. We even had Dr. Auchi come out recently and say that, yeah, the jab can cause myocarditis or heart inflammation in young people, but it's very, very rare. You don't have to worry about it. Yet, here we are. We are getting news articles where young people are getting mysterious heart attacks out of nowhere. And these young people that are getting these heart attacks are healthy. They have no birth defects. This article goes on to say in 2019, only 0.3% of United States adults between ages 18 and 44 had suffered a heart attack, according to data from the National Center for Health Statistics. That figure went up to 0.5% last year. So while heart attacks in this group are still rare, that's an increase of more than 66% over the past 4 years. I am sure those numbers are much higher, but they want that magical number of 66% for whatever reason. Numerology is always important in these very strange stories. They go on to say that heart attacks are far more common in older people, but get this, they are finding out that heart attacks are actually down for every age group besides young people. For young people, it's actually been increasing. Now, I know what you might be saying then, Minutes of Horror, this can't be the jab, because even older people had gotten the jab, so they would see an increase in heart attacks as well. But you see, here's the thing. The link between the jab and myocarditis is mainly affecting younger people. Even if all these age groups had gotten myocarditis or heart inflammation, more than likely it would still affect younger people because they are the ones more active. They are the ones always seen playing sports. So they are the ones that have their hearts beating faster. Now, I'm not saying that older people cannot be physically fit or physically active. I'm not saying that. But if you were to take both age groups, an older age group and a younger age group, more than likely you will find more people in the younger age group who are more active. This article even breaks down why we are seeing heart attacks in young, healthy people more often. And as you guessed it, the jab is missing. They mention obesity rates continue to rise. They also mention how the C19 may have fueled a further increase in premature heart attacks. Now, they are talking about the disease itself. They are not talking about the jab. Then they are talking about how younger men are lost to the healthcare system and how smoking, diabetes, periods, and stress are unique risk factors for younger women. But let's not talk about that thing that people had stuck inside themselves that has caused or can cause heart inflammation. Because all the things they list in this article were present prior to 2020, except, of course, the C19 itself. Look, I get it. We do live in a much more stressful world. We are seeing an increase of strange events, like I said in the beginning of the video, but we should not take the conversation off the table when it comes to the jab and the side effects of the jab, especially if these side effects mainly affect one age group, and this age group is suspiciously seeing a rise of heart attacks. But you know what else we are also seeing a rise of? We are seeing a rise of very strange glitches, very strange blackouts. Since 2024, we have seen an increase in these glitches and blackouts. In the beginning of 2024, we saw AT&T, T-Mobile, and other carriers going down, but around the exact same time, there were stores and pharmacies also going down. When this blackout had occurred, many people initially thought it was just certain cell phone companies that were impacted, but no, there were also other businesses that had nothing to do with these cell phone companies that also went down around the exact same time. Then a month or 2 months after this occurred, 911 in certain states also faced a blackout where people could not reach out to 911. Then we had this whole CrowdStrike stuff recently, a program that is backed by the World Economic Forum, bringing down computers around the world that had Windows 11. Many airports, grocery stores, pharmacies, many important businesses had been impacted by this CrowdStrike bug. To me, I always felt like this was them, and when I say them, the powers that be, the World Economic Forum and so forth, flexing their power, showing us they can bring down the grid at any time with the flick of a button. Then as recent as the first, just like with AT&T, many Verizon customers were reporting a widespread outage with mobile phones only limited to SOS mode. This outage lasted more than 24 hours, and like I said, it was across the country, from California to Washington, D.C. Now we have news coming out that even the banking industry has been facing glitches. So what's going on here? Are we in some kind of cyber war that nobody is telling us? Reading this article from USA Today, which was published on October 2nd, this article is titled, Bank of America Customers Report Account Outages, some seeing balances of zero. Here is the very suspicious part. If you owed the bank money, let's say you had a negative account or you had a credit card balance, that would still show. That would not go to zero. But if you logged into your account and you had money in your checking and savings and other accounts, that would now go down to zero. Your money would not reflect into your account. But again, if you owed the bank money, like I said, that would still reflect on your account. Very, very suspicious, right? As of today, this issue has been largely resolved, but some people are still reporting that they can't see accounts that they have. And a lot of these accounts are holding thousands of dollars, and these people cannot find them. And I also find it rather interesting timing because we are talking about the economy recently and how the economy may crash due to this whole port strike. And now people are finding out when they log into their bank accounts, they are seeing a zero balance. So again, what's going on here? Why are we seeing so many glitches and blackouts across many different type of industries? Well, again, we were warned that something like this would happen when it came to Barack Obama's scripted movie, Leave the World Behind. I would not doubt one bit that these are test runs for something bigger that's in the making. Maybe they will go ahead and bring down the entire grid, cause chaos for a couple months as they hide underground, then they go ahead and blame it on a foreign country just to go ahead and start another conflict. We have also been seeing an increase of very strange astrological events. Matter of fact, One of these events also involved Israel. We are all aware that Iran had attacked Israel with rockets and missiles. That was on October 1st. Well, it was one day before Rosh Hashanah. Very, very interesting timing. But what's also rather interesting is that as Rosh Hashanah begins, there was a ring of fire solar eclipse that also appeared. Reading this article from Israel 365 News, it says, this will be the second and final solar eclipse of the year. It will appear at precisely 1542 Coordinated Universal Time, which corresponds to 1842 in Israel, almost precisely as the sun sets and the holy day begins. The eclipse on October 2nd will not be visible in the continental United States or Israel, and the eclipse path will be entirely over the Pacific Ocean. Now, here's what's also rather interesting. The article goes on to say, the first eclipse appeared on April 8th, known as the Great American Eclipse of 2024. It is important to note that April 8th was the eve of the new moon, marking the beginning of the Hebrew month of Nisan or Nisan, referred to in the Torah as the first month. They also go on to say that the month is considered auspicious as it contains the holiday of Passover. An annual solar eclipse was visible along a path covering parts of the United States, Mexico, and several countries in Central America and South America on October 14th, 2023, exactly 1 week after the horrific attack by Hamas on Israel. So what I guess they are saying, whenever there is a celestial event that involves Israel or aligns with Israel, something crazy happens. Right before this ring of fire that fell on the Feast of Trumpets, there was this missile attack on Israel, but they're saying that this ring of fire and it falling on the Feast of Trumpets could also be an indicator of something bigger that's going to take place. This article goes on to say, while skeptics claim this astronomical phenomenon has no spiritual significance, others note that the eclipse of 2017 that traversed the United States ushered in a catastrophic hurricane season, the global C-19, the war in Ukraine, and the horrific attack on Israel. Now, who really knows? But what I find interesting is that I always refer to the two great American solar eclipses that crossed paths over the New Madrid fault line back in the early 1800s. Well, after this event occurred only months later, the New Madrid fault line back in the 1800s saw a series of earthquakes so powerful, they are still in the top 3 worst earthquakes of all time in regards of North America. Well, this happened once again just recently, where the 2017 Great American Solar Eclipse crossed paths with the April 8th, 2024 solar eclipse on the New Madrid fault line. And again, since 2024, we have been hearing a lot of activity in regards to the New Madrid fault line. Matter of fact, there have been multiple simulations being run on the New Madrid fault line. So there definitely seems to be a correlation between solar eclipses and certain events. So who really knows what's in store in the future when it comes to this ring of fire solar eclipse or any other solar eclipse that we might see take place in different parts of the world. But a lot of people are saying they feel like something big is indeed coming. Like I said, we are just seeing a lot of strange events, a lot of strange news, and it seems like everything is coming to a head. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, Kofi. In my previous video, I stated that this whole dock work